Chapter 505. With Lei Jiuxiao's abilities, it would be extremely easy for him to help the Wind King survive the demonic ascension tribulation. He did not even need to use 1/10,000th of his dermic powers. After all, the demonic ascension tribulation was only equivalent to the heavenly tribulation that Lei Jiuxiao had experienced when he had attained the Earth Immortal Tao fruit. The current Lei Jiuxiao was tens of thousands of times more powerful than when he had attained the Earth Immortal Tao fruit. This heavenly tribulation was naturally nothing to him. However, it was easy to help the Wind King survive the demonic ascension tribulation. The impact of the demonic ascension tribulation was not extremely far-reaching. It was so important that it could even determine Lei Jiuxiao's future path of Tao validation. Lei Jiuxiao could not help but hesitate. He could not be sure. Just as Lei Jiuxiao was thinking, the huge tribulation cloud in the void had already undergone an extremely subtle change. Endless heavenly fire mixed with the endless lightning struck down on the Wind King. Lightning and fire were extremely explosive powers. When the two worked together, the attack was increased by more than 100 times. Such a powerful attack finally made the Wind King stop laughing maniacally. He circulated his connate mystique that had been refined by cultivating the wind summoning body to its limit. Endless huge divine wind was born from the void and continuously poured into the wind bag above his head, causing the wind bag to flicker continuously. Its power was greatly increased as it continuously devoured the endless lightning fire. The fire borrowed the power of the wind and lightning coexisted. The nature of the wind bag allowed it to have an extraordinary effect on lightning. It could continuously devour a huge amount of lightning and convert it into its own power, causing the lightning's effect on the Wind King to be weakened to the extreme. However, the wind bag was unable to stop the heavenly fire mixed with the lightning. Although it was barely able to stop the heavenly flames, preventing them from breaking through the defense of the wind bag and affecting the Wind Summoning King, it was not able to completely eliminate them. After the lightning fire, the wind bag was surrounded by boundless flames. It was as if it had fallen into the fire and was being burned, about to be reduced to ashes. The Wind King's body gradually floated up. His face was filled with unyielding madness. The power in his body had completely transformed into another nature. The wind bag gradually changed form under the burning of the lightning fire. That power was a kind of demonic power that had never appeared in the primordial world. As for the form that the wind bag had transformed into, it was precisely because of the demonic energy's influence that it had changed into a form that was compatible with the demonic energy, allowing the demonic energy to be more compatible with it, making it even more inseparable from the demonic energy. The appearance of this demonic power and the formation of this demonic artifact meant that the demon tribe had truly appeared in the untainted world. Of course, it also meant that the tribulation of demonic ascension was unstoppable. Demons had never appeared in the primordial world. They were not naturally born in the primordial world. On the other hand, the appearance of demons would definitely occupy the endless destiny of the primordial world and seek the endless resources of the primordial world. The importance of this matter could be imagined. Under such circumstances, the appearance of the demon would naturally trigger a reaction from the primordial world. The Supreme Great Tao would naturally send down endless tribulations to test it. If it couldn't overcome this tribulation, then the demon would naturally disappear from the world. All traces of it would be erased, and it would be as if it had never existed. If he could survive the tribulation, he would be qualified to live in the primordial world and seek the Tao. Therefore, the heavenly tribulation this time was a critical juncture for the demon race. If they advanced, they would survive. If the Wind King did not survive the heavenly tribulation, not only would he turn into ashes, but the time that the demon appeared in the primordial world would also be delayed indefinitely. It might even never appear in the primordial world again. If he could survive this heavenly tribulation, the existence of the demon race would be recognized by the primordial world. From then on, it would be the same as the other connate gods, star beasts, and postnatal lifeforms. Star beasts were similar to postnatal lifeforms. They became one of the thousands of races in the primordial world, and they also had the most promising future. Lei Jiuxiao looked at the heavenly tribulation above him and felt the meaning of his next decision. His mind was filled with endless pressure, and he even felt that it was slightly difficult for him to breathe. If I help the Wind King transcend the tribulation, my future destiny and destiny will probably be connected to the demon race. If anything happens to the demon race, I'm afraid I'll be unlucky as well. Lei Jiuxiao thought to himself, unable to make a decision. Although his mental cultivation was astonishing and his cultivation had reached an extremely high level, he could not measure the fate and destiny of the demon race. To connect his fate and destiny with a race that he had no idea of its future was not something that he could deal with indifferently with his mental cultivation. The risk of this matter is so great, but the opportunity is also unimaginably great. If I can obtain the destiny of a race with a bright future, my cultivation in the future will be thousands of times smoother. Forget it, since I don't know, I'll ask Master for guidance. Lei Jiuxiao finally made his decision. With such a decision, he did not hesitate. With a thought, he silently recited a short mantra. In an instant, he connected with the Yellow Springs network that filled the primordial world and connected every inch of space inside and outside of the primordial world. A mental projection directly entered the virtual world. After entering the virtual world, he did not care about his surroundings. He closed his eyes and moved his mind slightly. He sensed that there were billions of spiritual senses, whether strong or weak, faintly existing in various areas of the primordial world. Above these billions of spiritual senses, there was a faintly discernible spiritual sense that could not be sensed by ordinary living beings, but it filled the entire world and enveloped the infinite space and time in the universe. It enveloped him like a warm sun, making him feel an indescribable sense of intimacy and admiration. He even wanted to be immersed in this feeling that made him sink into it forever. Even if ordinary living beings sensed this spiritual sense, they would not be able to know what it was. However, Lei Jiuxiao was very clear that this spiritual sense came from his master, the supreme existence that suppressed the primordial world and was revered as a Tao master by all living beings in the primordial world, Luo Fan. He even knew that this vast spiritual sense was merely a manifestation of the thoughts emitted by Luo Fan, who was currently comprehending the 296 billion dong heavens of the primordial world. After sighing with emotion at his master's incredible power, Lei Jiuxiao did not forget why he had entered this place. With the help of the method that Luo Fan had imparted to him, he included all the problems he had encountered into a thought and transmitted it to Luo Fan. The spiritual sense network in the virtual world was an invisible existence. Even if it gathered the entire primordial world, it could still be transmitted without any time difference. When Lei Jiuxiao's thought was sent out, it was already received by Luo Fan. In that instant, the spiritual sense that enveloped the entire world stirred slightly, even causing the entire virtual world to react violently. It was as if the entire void of the virtual world had suddenly experienced an extremely subtle tremor that no living being could ignore. "I see." Suddenly, Lei Jiuxiao seemed to hear a clear voice say in a low voice. At first glance, this voice seemed to be extremely ordinary. However, so long as one carefully comprehended it, one would be able to sense the boundless profundities contained within it. It was only a few syllables, yet it seemed to contain the entire universe and the boundless profundities of the Grand Tao. When one heard this voice, a boundless world that was filled with vitality would naturally appear in one's mind. Chapter 506. Ever since the great calamity of the world, Luo Fan had been in the strange palace inside the void Wuji Palace, which had already fused with the entire primordial world. With the help of the connection between the strange palace and the 296 billion square meters of worlds that spread across the entire primordial world, he observed the evolution process of these worlds, which he called Dong Tian, from Huanluan to order. No matter how fast the evolution process of a world was, it was not something that could be completed in 1 or 2,000 years. Therefore, although more than 3,000 years had passed, to Luo Fan, it was not much different from an instant. The evolution of the 296 billion square meters of worlds was still continuing, and he still felt that his cultivation realm was improving slightly at every moment. His understanding of the world, his understanding of the Supreme Great Tao, and his comprehension of his own cultivation were all constantly improving. Unknowingly, Luo Fan felt as if he was about to truly attain the Tai true number without realizing it. It seemed that he only lacked the last insignificant opportunity, or perhaps he only lacked a little psychological understanding. This process of comprehension, which was extremely stressful for Lei Jiuxiao and the others, was naturally not much for Luo Fan. After sending them away, he wholeheartedly comprehended the evolution of the 296 billion square meters of worlds, apart from the consciousness he left in the virtual world. On this day, with a thought, he felt that the consciousness he left in the virtual world had received some information related to the evolution process of the entire primordial world. He finally shifted his attention away from the evolution of the 296 billion square meters of worlds in front of him and focused on that bit of information. After thinking about it carefully, Luo Fan had completely grasped the cause and effect of this matter. He even understood the hidden effect of the Supreme Great Tao behind this matter. Through various deductions, he had also calculated the impact of this matter in the future. I see. Enlightened, Luo Fan smiled slightly and let out a low chuckle. At this moment, Luo Fan only lacked that bit of psychological understanding to attain the Tai true number. In other words, as long as Luo Fan believed that he had attained the Tai true number, he would attain it. As long as he believed that he could not, he would not attain it. Seriously speaking, there was not much difference between his cultivation realm and the true Tai true number. Under such circumstances, the words that he naturally spoke from his heart contained his understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth. It was a world of difference from ordinary words. When Lei Jiuxiao heard Luo Fan's words, he instantly felt that the indecisive trouble he had encountered before had become extremely simple. The slight irritation brought about by this trouble also instantly disappeared without a trace. The Tao that he had comprehended over the past few thousand years instantly appeared in his mind and mind. Moreover, it collapsed and recombined at an unimaginable speed to form all sorts of inconceivable and mysterious technique. Almost at the instant Luo Fan finished speaking, Lei Jiuxiao showed signs of entering the state of enlightenment. At this moment, Luo Fan was in the strange hall inside the Infinite Void Palace, but his attention was focused on the virtual world. When he discovered Lei Jiuxiao's current state, he was first stunned, then came to a sudden realization. Looks like he really hasn't slacked off in the past few thousand years. This thought instantly flashed through his mind. The state of enlightenment was an incomparably mysterious and profound state. It could be extremely long or it could be extremely short. However, for cultivators who had entered the state of enlightenment, these two things did not have an absolute effect on each other. For cultivators who had entered the state of enlightenment, that originally extremely long period of time could pass in the blink of an eye. And that extremely short period of time could also be stretched out by hundreds of millions of times in their perception, from a time that was originally just a moment to an unknown number of years. At this moment, Lei Jiuxiao happened to be in the second situation. From Luo Fan's point of view, he had only been slightly dazed, as if he had just entered the state of enlightenment, but he immediately regained his senses. His eyes became clear again, and the various changes in his mind completely calmed down. The countless experiences over the years had condensed into an indescribable mysterious seed. To Luo Fan, this mysterious seed was a kind of true meaning of heaven and earth, an existence similar to the massacre true meaning and the thunder true meaning. To Lei Jiuxiao, this was the foundation for him to truly attain the Tai Dao fruit in the future. To him, the importance of this was even comparable to attaining the earthly immortal Dao fruit. In the eyes of Luo Fan, this period of time was just a blink of an eye, but to Lei Jiuxiao, it was a practically endless period of time, and he didn't know how many tens of thousands of years had passed. During this period of time, he had completely lost the concept of time, and he only knew that he was constantly comprehending and condensing the various profundities of the universe and nature that he had comprehended over the past few thousand years. Because he'd lost the concept of time, he'd poured all his energy into it. In the end, after an unknown period of time, he'd finally condensed everything into this incomparably profound seed that seemed to contain everything in his life. Only when he regained his senses and recovered the concept of time did he recall that he had experienced an unknown number of tens of thousands of years in the state of enlightenment. Looks like you already know how to choose, so I won't say anything more. But you must remember that this world has a fixed number, and there are also variables. A fixed number can be changed into a variable, and a variable can also become a fixed number. When Luo Fan saw the light in Lei Jiuxiao's eyes after he returned to his senses, he knew that there was no need for him to say anything more, so he just said one sentence. Lei Jiuxiao trembled when he heard Luo Fan, and then he bowed and said, "Disciple will definitely remember this, and I don't dare to forget it for even a moment." Luo Fan grinned and withdrew his attention. He placed his attention back onto the evolution of the 296 billion square meters of space, and he paid no further attention to Lei Jiuxiao. Lei Jiuxiao already knew how to choose through his previous comprehension. With a command in his mind, the projection of his consciousness in the virtual world dispersed, and his consciousness returned to his body. At the instant his consciousness returned to his body, an imposing aura that shot into the heavens and the earth suddenly erupted from his body. This imposing aura was ceaselessly rising. It was originally limited to the independent immortal realm, but in just an instant, it had increased by over 10,000 times, and it had far surpassed the independent immortal realm and arrived at the true immortal realm. It was even to the extent that it could be considered as an existence at the peak of the true immortal realm. It was precisely because Lei Jiuxiao had entered the state of enlightenment in the virtual world, and he had finally relied on this comprehension to break through the bottleneck between the independent immortal realm and true immortal realm. He'd taken the half-step that was originally stuck in the independent immortal realm, and he'd truly attained the true immortal realm. I, Lei Jiuxiao, have transformed a beast into a demon today. From today onwards, the demon clan will exist forever. Lei Jiuxiao looked up into the sky, and then two extremely dazzling bolts of lightning shot out from his eyes. They were like two pillars of light that shot into the sky, and they shot into the tribulation clouds in the sky. Chapter 507. Lei Jiuxiao's words were so shocking that the powerful existences who had gathered their senses there could not help but be shocked. For a moment, countless waves were stirred. The waves caused the energy on the mountain to move violently. It made the mountain, which had already appeared extremely desolate under the tribulation clouds, become even more desolate and difficult to deal with. Lei Jiuxiao ignored the powerful existences who had gathered their senses there. He focused all his attention on the huge changes happening to the tribulation clouds above him. In the instant that Lei Jiuxiao said those words, the space within an area of tens of thousands of kilometers around him suddenly trembled in an obscure and mysterious manner. The inexplicable waves produced by the tremors spread out in all directions. In an instant, they reached every inch of space in the primordial world. This ripple was even more obvious and mysterious than the ripple that the wind-beckoning king produced when he thought that he was a demon. If it was said that only a few of the more sensitive and powerful beings could sense this strange ripple before, then the intensity of this ripple right now was so great that any intelligent being could sense it. It was also at this moment that countless living beings in the primordial world suddenly raised their heads, and their eyes became blank in an instant. It was as if there was something in this world that was very important to them, but they could not understand it at all. A change that they did not know was happening somewhere in the primordial world. This made the countless beings in the primordial world suddenly feel an indescribable emptiness, an indescribable anticipation, or even a tremble of excitement. At that moment, the powerful existences who could sense the changes around Lei Jiuxiao all understood that a new era seemed to have arrived. The tribulation cloud in the sky above Lei Jiuxiao underwent an earth-shattering change in an instant. Countless inexplicable existences surged out of the space and entered the tribulation cloud. In just a few breaths, the tribulation cloud had become more than 10 times denser. Even though the area it enveloped was still 1,000,000 kilometers in radius, its might was hundreds or even thousands of times stronger than before. Under such a powerful aura, the space within the range of the tribulation cloud seemed to have frozen. The yuan qi, which was originally extremely strong due to various conditions, was also completely frozen. Everything within 1,000,000 kilometers fell into a state of deathly stillness. Not even the slightest breeze could exist. The wind-beckoning monarch's eyes lit up at this moment. The wind pouch above his head that was wrapped in heavenly fire fluttered slightly. He turned to look at Lei Jiuxiao with an indescribable look in his eyes. Lei Jiuxiao stood where he was and looked up at the sky. The 2 bolts of lightning were like pillars that connected heaven and earth, piercing into the tribulation clouds above. There was an inexplicable feeling in his heart. In an instant, he understood that the heavenly tribulation had changed its target. It was originally the wind-beckoning king's tribulation of ascension, but now it had become a tribulation that targeted him, a tribulation to test him. It could also be said that after Lei Jiuxiao said that, the wind-beckoning king's tribulation of ascension had been successfully passed. The tribulation cloud that still existed in the sky had become Lei Jiuxiao's tribulation. It no longer had anything to do with the wind-beckoning king. "Thank you for saving me, ancestor." The wind-beckoning king was extremely fortunate. He ignored the tribulation cloud in the sky and the wind pouch that was wrapped in heavenly fire above his head. He bowed and shouted. Lei Jiuxiao's words clearly indicated that he was willing to be the ancestor of the demon ancestors. Naturally, he was the ancestor of the number 1 demon of the primordial world. This change was extremely significant. However, at this moment, no existence in the primordial world could sense it. This was because the moment the heavenly tribulation changed and its might increased by hundreds or thousands of times, the senses of the powerful existences were completely isolated. They could no longer sense anything within the range of the tribulation cloud. The moment the wind-beckoning king bowed, the might of the tribulation cloud in the sky increased once again. Endless lightning and fire spread down the 2 lightning bolts that shot out of Lei Jiuxiao's eyes. They instantly traversed a long distance and rushed into Lei Jiuxiao's eyes along the lightning bolts. With this as a catalyst, the tribulation cloud's changes became even more intense. All these changes interweaved together, causing the tribulation cloud to form a huge vortex with these 2 lightning bolts as the center. Endless complicated changes occurred in the tribulation cloud around the vortex. They turned into all sorts of unbelievable attacks that surged into Lei Jiuxiao's eyes through the 2 lightning bolts. Lei Jiuxiao stood on the mountain peak. His body was as stable as a mountain. No matter how much lightning, heavenly fire, divine wind, true water, and other powers surged into his eyes through the lightning bolts, he did not waver at all. His eyes were like 2 huge black holes that were madly swallowing everything that the tribulation clouds emitted. This process continued without end. 2 hours, 4 hours, 1 day, 2 days, after 9 days and 9 nights, the tribulation clouds in the sky had become extremely thin. Even though it still enveloped an area of 500,000 kilometers, and even the light it emitted wasn't much different from when it was at the beginning, it was obvious that the tribulation clouds had already arrived at the final stage and were about to disperse. Lei Jiuxiao did not make any movements during these 9 days and 9 nights. He stood at the top of the mountain and looked up at the sky. 2 lightning bolts pierced into the tribulation cloud above like the pivot of heaven and earth, allowing the boundless power in the tribulation cloud to surge into his eyes. This method of transcending the tribulation had never appeared in the primordial world before. Even when Luo Fan was going through the heavenly tribulation, he had to rely on the power of his body and the strength of his body to resist it. He did not dare to ignore the heavenly tribulation and absorb it into his body without any effort. It could be said that Lei Jiuxiao's method of transcending the tribulation was unprecedented. Any living creature with the slightest bit of intelligence would be able to tell whether this was a success or not. The existence of the tribulation cloud was the proof. If this method failed to block the tribulation and he did not have the power to transcend it, then Lei Jiuxiao would have been killed by the tribulation. How could he have stood under it for 9 days and 9 nights? At this moment, the vortex formed by the tribulation cloud in the sky suddenly stopped. Then, as if an indescribable suction force was generated from the center of the vortex, the tribulation cloud rapidly shrank and shrank. From its original radius of 1,000,000 miles, it compressed into 2 spheres with a radius of 10 feet. It took less than 10 breaths of time. After the 2 spheres were formed, they did not stop and directly rushed into the 2 lightning bolts. As they disintegrated the 2 lightning bolts, they approached Lei Jiuxiao's eyes. They were so fast that they almost surpassed the speed of time. It was as if they had already rushed into Lei Jiuxiao's eyes the moment they were formed. As the 2 spheres rushed in, Lei Jiuxiao's body erupted with an extremely intense light, like a blazing sun hanging high in the sky. At the same time, an earth-shattering howl surged out of Lei Jiuxiao's mouth, shaking the world. Chapter 508. As the howl rang out, the light around Lei Jiuxiao gradually receded. The changes in his eyes were even faster and even more astonishing. The lightning that had been flashing in his eyes had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. At this moment, there were countless lights flashing in his eyes. Countless rays of light interweaved, as though 2 complete and vast worlds had been opened up. That was exactly what happened. Over the past 9 days and 9 nights, the tribulation clouds in the sky had unleashed countless attacks of different natures. Every single attack was shockingly destructive. Just one of them was enough to instantly obliterate the Windsummoner King, who'd cultivated the Windsummoner physique and had even transformed into the greatest demon of the primordial universe. Such a powerful attack lasted for 9 days and 9 nights. Almost every moment, there would be dozens of attacks falling from the sky, blasting straight into Lei Jiuxiao's eyes. From this, it was clear just how great the power that had blasted into his eyes over the past 9 days and 9 nights had been. These attacks were all-encompassing, containing almost all the natures of power that could exist in the primordial universe. All of these powers were needed to form the primordial universe, to form a complete world. When Lei Jiuxiao used the profound method he'd comprehended to draw these powers into his eyes and wove them together according to some profound method, the powers interacted with each other. Under the influence of the Supreme Great Tao, they naturally constructed 2 miniature worlds. Although the 2 miniature worlds were so small that they could only exist in his eyes, they completely contained all of the power of the heavenly tribulation. They even produced some kind of unimaginable power, allowing Lei Jiuxiao's eyes to possess all sorts of inconceivable abilities. It could be said that Lei Jiuxiao's method of overcoming the tribulation wasn't to block or eliminate the tribulation. Instead, he had opened up a space to contain the tribulation's energy and absorb all of the tribulation's energy, allowing the tribulation's energy to wreak havoc within it. The tribulation was still searching for him in an attempt to kill him, but it wouldn't be eliminated. As long as the energy within leaked out, it would immediately blast towards Lei Jiuxiao, wanting to continue what had been unfinished today and completely obliterate him. As a result, while Lei Jiuxiao appeared to have survived the heavenly tribulation, he had actually used some kind of mysterious trick to deceive the tribulation, allowing the boundless power that it had unleashed to become the source of power for his eyes. After the long howl, Lei Jiuxiao stood there quietly. His eyes turned slightly as he looked at a certain spot in the void. At this moment, the world in Lei Jiuxiao's eyes had undergone some sort of indescribable, mysterious, and extremely important change. The surrounding innate origin qi, chaotic origin qi, star essence qi, and other types of origin qi were clearly revealed to him. With a casual grab, he seemed to be able to grab any wisp of yuan qi he needed. With a thought, the trajectory of the power in the void was revealed without reservation. It was even to the extent that he could faintly see the threads hidden in the void. They were the various laws that formed the primordial world. They contained boundless profundities, and even the supreme Tao was contained within them. This was already the initial stage of the world that Luo Fan had seen after attaining the primordial Tao fruit. The world that Lei Jiuxiao saw was billions of times simpler and cruder than the world that Luo Fan had seen after attaining the primordial Tao fruit. If he had to use an analogy to describe it, then the world that Lei Jiuxiao saw was a curved line drawn on a piece of white paper, while what Luo Fan saw was an extremely complicated world painting. It could be said that there was no comparison between the two at all. However, he had already seen a bit of the primordial world's true appearance, after all. It had already surpassed almost all perfected immortals, and even golden immortals were inferior to him in this aspect. From this, it could be seen just how profound the two eyes that Lei Jiuxiao had created were. It's a pity that it's still not as good as Masters Pangu's chaotic heavenly pupils. Lei Jiuxiao sighed. This pair of eyes could indeed see through a trace of the prehistorical void, but that was all. Compared to the Pangu chaotic heavenly eyes, this pair of eyes didn't have any other powers, not even the first level of the Pangu chaotic heavenly eyes. Of course, this referred to the incredible power of seeing through the past and the future. For example, the minor powers of seeing through barriers and appearances were still present in the eyes that Lei Jiuxiao had created. After sighing emotionally, Lei Jiuxiao withdrew his gaze and looked towards the wind-beckoning king, who had been kneeling before him for 9 days and 9 nights. Seeing Lei Jiuxiao look over, the wind-beckoning king hurriedly bowed again and said, "Wind Beckoning congratulates Ancestor on passing the heavenly tribulation and improving greatly in power. Rise." Lei Jiuxiao's expression was calm. He casually lifted the Wind Beckoning King up with a wave of power. Although the Wind Summoning King already possessed the intelligence of an ordinary person, and after a period of development, he would definitely be able to possess extremely complicated thoughts. He was only at the beginning of his intelligence. In Lei Jiuxiao's eyes, his thoughts were like black dots on a piece of white paper. He could instantly understand them with a single glance. As a result, although the Wind-Beckoning King's words were without a head or tail, he completely understood what the Wind-Beckoning King was thinking. Naturally, there was no need to ask further. "Thank you, Ancestor." The Wind-Beckoning King stood up and said very respectfully. After Lei Jiuxiao made way for the Wind-Beckoning King, he said to the void, "Today is the birth of the demon race. Since the few of you are witnesses, you can no longer stay out of it. I wonder if you can show yourselves?" As soon as he said that, a few strange sighs sounded out of nowhere and entered Lei Jiuxiao and the Wind-Beckoning King's ears. Following that, the yuan qi in the void surged and 18 medium-sized vortexes appeared. Within the vortexes, boundless innate energy continuously gathered together with a certain strange power in the void. Gradually, a mysterious existence was formed within the vortexes. The suction force produced by the vortexes was extremely great. As they revolved, they revealed different techniques, but all of them were extremely profound, displaying various unimaginable technique. After several dozen breaths, the vortexes gradually stopped. The innate energy gathered by the 18 vortexes also gradually dissipated, revealing the mysterious existence that had gathered a tremendous amount of innate energy and various strange powers. There were 18 figures. Chapter 509. When the tribulation clouds in the sky completely shrank and charged into Lei Jiuxiao's eyes along with the lightning, the power that locked down the void completely disappeared. With the power that locked down the void gone, the location naturally could not stop the many powerful existences from spying on it. As a result, after Lei Jiuxiao completely absorbed the heavenly tribulation into his eyes, everything that happened on the mountain was sensed by over a dozen strands of consciousness. Lei Jiuxiao did not show any reaction to the spying of these strands of consciousness in the beginning, pretending to be unaware. However, when he spoke just now, it was like a sharp sword pointing at the strands of consciousness. The owners of these strands of consciousness immediately felt an indescribable pressure acting on their hearts. The owners of these strands of consciousness were at least peak true immortals. Apart from a few, they were all innate God. They were extremely revered existences among them, and they had a greater understanding of the lofty existence behind Lei Jiuxiao than other living beings. As a result, the moment they felt the pressure acting on their hearts, they immediately understood that they had been pulled into the birth of the demons without them realizing it. It was because of this understanding that they had no choice but to use some profound techniques to condense various types of energy into a projection of their consciousness to meet Lei Jiuxiao. An old man in Taoist robes was the first to take form. He stood on an auspicious cloud and smiled at Lei Jiuxiao. "I didn't think we'd be unknowingly tricked by you. Senior Tai Long, you're too kind. Although I've used some tricks, it's not necessarily a bad thing for you. Perhaps it'll become a fortuitous encounter for you to break through your current realm." Lei Jiuxiao chuckled. The owners of these strands of consciousness had gotten involved mainly because they were too curious. They had come to watch Lei Jiuxiao and the wind-beckoning monarch undergo their tribulations, so they did not really have much to do with Lei Jiuxiao. However, what was the point of fighting over such words? Since they felt that they had lost face and wanted to vent a little through words, Lei Jiuxiao would let them vent. To Lei Jiuxiao, he only needed to be a little more tactful with his words, but it was very likely that they would help him wholeheartedly. Why not? As for the old man's identity, it was even simpler. He was just an innate god who had cultivated in the space-time illusion set up by Luo Fan. Forget it. Over the past thousands of years, the environment of the primordial world had undergone a huge change. As a result, many innate gods had disappeared. An unremarkable existence stood out from the crowd and achieved supreme skills, surpassing the many innate gods. He became a powerful existence that played an important role in the primordial world. Taoist Tai Long was such an existence. Cultivators all had photographic memories. Although Taoist Tai Long was not outstanding in the past, he had once cultivated in the space-time illusion. Lei Jiuxiao had naturally seen him before. Now, when he saw the projection's appearance and aura, he instantly recognized Taoist Tai Long. Haha. I don't deserve to be addressed as senior. Fellow Taoist is now a demon ancestor and has obtained the great fortune of heaven and earth. In the future, I'm afraid we will have to rely on Taoist Fellow's protection. It's better for Taoist Fellow to address us as such. Taoist Tai Long waved his hand and smiled. However, he very wisely expressed his absolute support. Lei Jiuxiao smiled faintly and did not refute it. Although he wasn't an innate god, he was still a celestial emperor. But after cultivating the Tao of Tao taught by Luo Fan, his life essence had far surpassed most innate gods. Although Taoist Tai Long's background was better than his and his current cultivation realm was slightly higher than his, he was not afraid of him. He even had the confidence that if they were to fight, he could easily subdue him and even kill him. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for him to be too respectful towards this Taoist. Tai Long addressing him as a fellow Taoist was exactly what he wanted. As Taoist Tai Long expressed his attitude, the projection avatars of those powerful existences in the surroundings also took shape. He is indeed the disciple of a famous master. No wonder he is the disciple of Lord Luo Fan. A woman with a cold face that made people feel as if they were a block of ice said indifferently, "Senior Tongping, you flatter me. I only received some superficial knowledge from Master." "I'm truly ashamed to face Master," said Lei Jiuxiao sternly. The woman in front of him was different from Taoist Tai Long. She had stood out in the space-time illusion and was selected by Luo Fan to guard the untainted land during the Great Calamity. She became famous thousands of years before Taoist Tai Long and had many relationships with Luo Fan, so Lei Jiuxiao had to respect her. "No need to be humble. You don't need to call me senior. You are now in the realm of true immortals and a member of the monster clan. You are qualified to address us as peers. Don't decline, lest you ruin the reputation of Lord Luo Fan," said Tongping indifferently. Luo Fan's title of Lord Dao came from the thorns that guarded the virtual world. At first, only some postnatal living beings called him that. But as time passed, as the incredible power of the virtual world became more and more known to many living beings, Luo Fan's incredible power gradually became deeply rooted in people's hearts. The title of Lord Dao also gradually became recognized. Therefore, at this moment, even though they were also innate gods, they even had a relationship with Luo Fan a long time ago. They were the first batch of innate gods who met Luo Fan. They also recognized Luo Fan's status as a lord who had transcended all living beings in the primordial world and respected him as a Lord Dao. Since Tongping had already mentioned Luo Fan's reputation, Lei Jiuxiao naturally could not say anything else. He could only bow slightly and thank Tongping. These powerful existences were at least in the realm of true immortals, and they were all at the peak of the realm of true immortals. Each of them could easily kill dozens of existences of the same level. It could be said that they were the most powerful group of living beings in the primordial world. Of course, there were some powerful innate gods, such as the god of Buzhou Mountain and Yusu. They were so high that they could only look up to them. However, the god of Buzhou Mountain and the others had already been in seclusion for thousands of years. They had not come out since the great tribulation of heaven and earth, so there was no need to consider them. Since they were the most powerful group of existences in the primordial world, they were at the same level and naturally had a deep understanding of each other. The others naturally knew how powerful Tongping was. At this moment, Tongping was clearly supporting Lei Jiuxiao, which made them truly understand that Lei Jiuxiao's current status was completely different from before. For a moment, the few who originally wanted to embarrass Lei Jiuxiao changed their plans. After appearing, they did not do much to vent their anger. They only said a few words indifferently, and then floated in the void with their respective supernatural powers, quietly waiting for Lei Jiuxiao's explanation. With their appearance, all the white mist formed by the giant capsule divine wind at the top of the mountain was impacted by a powerful force. Most of it dissipated and disappeared without a trace. Only a few of the tougher and pure giant capsule divine wind attached to the mountain, turning into a thin layer that stuck to the mountain. This made the mountain seem as if it had been tempered into a white mountain range. It looked crystal clear and emitted a warm aura. Chapter 510. Lei Jiuxiao stood on the white mountain peak and casually gestured, saying, "Since everyone is here, why don't you come in and have a discussion so that we can decide what to do in the future? What do you think?" "That's how it should be." Taoist Tai Long smiled and said directly. As he spoke, he took a light step forward and instantly crossed a distance of dozens of feet, directly arriving in front of Lei Jiuxiao. As Taoist Tai Long expressed his stance, Tongping and the others did not hesitate. They each used their divine abilities and controlled their mental projection avatars to cross a long or short distance, arriving on the mountain peak and standing still. However, although their actions were rather cooperative, their expressions were not very happy. Instead, most of them were rather unwilling. This was natural. These existences had at least reached the peak of the true immortal realm. In the current untainted world, they were definitely considered to have an extremely high status. If they wanted to split the land and establish themselves, each of them could occupy at least hundreds of billions of miles of untainted world. Such powerful existences were originally cultivating well, but because of a moment of curiosity, they came to observe the tribulation of becoming a demon here and had no choice but to participate in a major event that they were not mentally prepared for. Even if the success of this major event might bring them great benefits, it would definitely not make them, who were pursuing self-transcendence, happy. Lei Jiuxiao naturally understood the mentality of these powerful existences, so his attitude was not the slightest bit overbearing. Instead, it seemed like he was asking everyone to cooperate with him. To him, this change in attitude was nothing. Compared to the benefits that he was about to obtain, this was not a grievance at all. There was also a wooden house on the mountain peak, but this wooden house was casually built by Lei Jiuxiao to shelter himself from the wind and rain. Although the area was not small, if it was used to accommodate 18 powerful existences, it would be a little crowded. Therefore, when the 18 powerful existences landed on the mountain peak, Lei Jiuxiao casually waved his hand. The wooden house collapsed with a loud bang. Then, because of the pressure of the 18 powerful existences, the giant reticulated divine wind that stuck to the surface of the mountain peak and dyed the mountain like white jade quickly gathered at the top of the mountain peak. In the blink of an eye, it fused with the wood produced by the collapse of the wooden house and began to reassemble at an extremely fast speed. Not long after, a towering palace that exuded an endless aura was built on the mountain peak. The entire process was extremely natural, and there wasn't even the slightest trace of power interference. It was as if it had been born naturally, like a tree growing from the ground. However, it was even easier and more profound than when Lei Jiuxiao had constructed the wooden house. That was only natural. When Lei Jiuxiao was building the wooden house, his cultivation realm had not broken through yet. He was only a half-step true immortal. But now, he had crossed that half-step and become a true immortal. How many times had his cultivation level increased compared to before? His actions were naturally much more profound than before. Seeing Lei Jiuxiao's actions, Daoist Tai Long and the others could not help but be slightly shocked. It was not difficult for them to build such a palace on the top of the mountain. Even if they wanted to build a more majestic, grand, and luxurious palace, it would not be difficult for them. However, it wasn't something they could do in such a relaxed and natural manner. As expected of the disciple of Tao Master Luo Fan. He has just reached the realm of true immortals, yet he already possesses such remarkable powers. Taoist Tai Long's mind flashed with such thoughts, and he could not help but become even more determined about his choice. He chuckled and said, "This palace is majestic and grand. Although it looks simple, it is quite charming. It can be used as a mountain residence. What do you all think?" The people present were all people with extremely high cultivation and had seen many things. After seeing Lei Jiuxiao's power, they gradually dispelled their previous grudges. At least, this person in front of them had enough strength and enough potential to bring them benefit. Cooperating with this person in front of them was not something unacceptable. Therefore, a seemingly gentlewoman immediately followed up. "That's right. Although this hall is good, it doesn't have a name. Why don't we discuss a name with it?" This woman was also an innate god? Her name was Sha Zhen. Although her cultivation realm was the lowest among everyone present, no one dared to ignore her. In fact, almost everyone was most unwilling to fight her. The reason for this was because of his background. When Sha Zhen was born, she was accompanied by a stalk of 5 essence flower that possessed mysterious power. In the hundreds of thousands of years after its birth, Because it didn't know the mysteries of the five-spirit flower, it could only use its own power to refine it into a magic tool, but it couldn't truly unleash its incredible power. The many innate gods that couldn't be in the time and space illusion? He stood out from the crowd. And in the thousands of years after the great calamity of the world, because of the blossoming of 100 flowers, countless magic arts were created. Her luck was extremely good, and her luck was astonishing. She coincidentally obtained a magic art that just happened to be suitable for this magic tool, causing the 5 exquisite flower to be reborn and refined into a treasure that could achieve Tao. In other words, the body of the magic tool itself became the body of the magic tool, but the spirit of the magic tool was attached to it, and the spirit of the magic tool was used as the treasure spirit, becoming a kind of magic tool. After obtaining this treasure, Sha Zhen's cultivation realm was not very high, but her strength had increased by many times. It was enough for her to be on par with many of the powerful existences present. Hearing Sha Zhen's words, Taoist Tai Long chuckled and said, "Yes, yes, Taoist Sha Zhen, this is the main point. Why don't we call it the Ancestral Demon Hall?" The indifferent Tong Ping directly suggested. "This name is great. Although it's not extravagant, it's easy to understand and goes straight to the point." "Wonderful," Taoist Tai Long praised. The other few powerful existences, who were originally unable to make up their minds, knit their brows together when they heard the few of them echo each other. They instantly made up their minds. What Taoist Tai Long and the others did was the best way to express their stance. It proved that they absolutely supported Lei Jiuxiao. The others weren't idiot. Since the situation had developed this way, they naturally knew which choice would be the most beneficial for them. Thus, after hearing this, everyone either tacitly agreed or nodded. Although they didn't agree on the spot, they expressed their own choice. Seeing everyone like this, Lei Jiuxiao smiled and said, "Since everyone has agreed, Jiuxiao naturally has no objections." With that, he casually waved his hand, and a wave of power condensed in the void. It quickly gathered above the hall and gradually turned into a plaque. There were 4 huge gilded Pengu characters on the plaque, Ancestral Demon Hall. Seeing the 4 characters form, the wind-beckoning king suddenly burst into tears. His knees went soft and he knelt on the ground. His body collapsed as he sobbed. At the same time, the demonic power in his body trembled endlessly. Like boiling oil thrown into clear water, it seemed like it could explode at any time and blast him into pieces. With everyone's cultivation realm, they instantly knew that the wind-beckoning king's heart was trembling and he couldn't control his own power. They couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 511. The wind-beckoning king's performance was like a lonely living being in the world who had found his roots and where he belonged. To the connate gods present? To postnatal living beings, they more or less felt like they were in the same boat. After all, there was no need to talk about the postnatal living beings. Although there were tens of thousands of them, every connate god? Seriously speaking, they were unique existences in the world. In the primordial world, there were no other living beings who were truly of the same race as them. Under such circumstances, to connate gods? Of course, they would occasionally feel as lonely as the wind-beckoning king. However, it was not as intense as the wind-beckoning kings. However, they were not on the same level as the wind-beckoning king. They could only sigh when they saw the wind-beckoning king's performance. After sighing, they did not stop. They directly passed by the wind-beckoning king, crossed the door, and entered the ancestral demon palace. This hall was extremely wide, and the furnishings inside were extremely simple and unadorned. It didn't seem luxurious at all, but it made one feel as if it was filled with an indescribable atmosphere. The living beings inside were unknowingly affected by this atmosphere, and their minds also became broadened. Everyone present was a powerful existence at the top of the primordial world. There was no need to describe their cultivation realm. As soon as they saw the furnishings of the hall, They knew that the hall had fused with Lei Jiuxiao's countless insights into the great Tao of heaven and earth. It contained all sorts of unbelievable mysteries. It was precisely because of this that such an infectious power appeared. Sensing this, everyone's ill feelings towards Lei Jiuxiao lessened a little. After all, being able to fuse his countless insights into the great Tao of heaven and earth into the hall represented Lei Jiuxiao's sincerity. It represented how much he valued the demon race. The possibility of them obtaining benefits by joining was also greater. There were 18 thrones in the hall, and they formed a circle around the hall. There was no difference between the thrones. They were all the same height, but they had different styles. Some were ferocious, some dignified, some ethereal, and some murderous. It was obvious that Lei Jiuxiao had specially designed the style of the throne according to the characteristics of the people present. As soon as everyone saw these thrones, they knew where they should be, so they didn't say anything and just sat down on their respective thrones. Lei Jiuxiao's throne was naturally in the center. This was inevitable. After all, Lei Jiuxiao was the master of this place. Although there was no difference between the thrones, there was still a need to pay attention to the positions. After sitting down, the wind-beckoning monarch walked in. As soon as he entered the hall, the wind-summoning king's body shook violently. He felt an indescribable pressure appear from space, pressing down on his mind. He felt his mind tremble and his body go limp. He could not control himself at all. After the wind-summoning king became the greatest demon in the primeval times, an unyielding and arrogant will to fight against the heavens and the earth appeared in his heart. If he felt such pressure anywhere else, it would only arouse his dissatisfaction and resistance. He would rather die than submit. However, this was the ancestral demon palace, an existence that had shaken him to the core and made him unable to control himself. Under this pressure, he succumbed. Immediately, the wind-summoning king knelt on the ground under this pressure, not daring to get up. The Wind King's choice wasn't hard to understand. His choice was just like how a person who didn't want to kneel, who didn't believe, and who looked down on ghosts and gods would definitely kneel during their parents' funeral. It wasn't because he surrendered, but because he was driven by his emotions. Seeing the wind-summoning king like this, Lei Jiuxiao nodded and said, "Since you're the greatest demon in the primeval times, you have to bear the responsibility of being the greatest demon in the primeval times. Now you can leave first. Pass down the technique that I passed to you to the wind-summoning clan and the rest of the demon race." Hearing that, the wind-summoning king was overjoyed. He kowtowed in excitement and replied, "Yes, Patriarch." Lei Jiuxiao waved his hand, and the wind-summoning king hurriedly stood up and retreated out of the ancestral demon palace. Then, he turned around and turned into a black giant divine wind capsule, heading towards the mountain peak not far away. There were countless wind-summoning kings who did not dare to move because of the tribulation of demon ascension and the aura of Taoist Tai Long and the rest. They were also the group of wind-summoning king that was previously ruled by the wind-summoning king. The wind-summoning king was many times stronger than before he was captured by Lei Jiuxiao. Although his power was not much stronger than before, the aura he exuded was incomparable to before. He arrived at the mountain peak and released his aura. The wind-summoning kings roared in unison, expressing the highest degree of submission. The wind-summoning king remembered Lei Jiuxiao's instructions and immediately activated the cultivation technique of the wind-summoning body. He released his demonic power and enveloped the entire mountain peak. Being enveloped by the demonic power, the wind-summoning kings felt like it was the end of the world. It was as though they could collapse and die at any time. However, they could not resist. Among them, a small number of wind-summoning kings produced wisps of black power under the pressure. They interweaved with the demonic power emitted by the wind-summoning king, allowing the wind-summoning king to sense it. When the wind-summoning king saw this, he was overjoyed. He grabbed out casually, and the 30-odd wind-summoning beasts lined up and were pulled up to the same height as him. I didn't expect there to be so many wind-summoning kings with the potential to become demons. Looks like I'm one step closer to completing the ancestors' instructions, the wind-summoning king murmured joyfully. The method he used just now was a method to search for demons that he had naturally comprehended after transcending the tribulation of becoming a demon. This method could borrow the influence of demonic power to allow beasts with the potential to become demons to produce their first strand of demonic chi. This allowed him to distinguish these beasts with the potential to become demons from other beasts. Of course, this kind of potential was not innate, nor was it unchangeable. The wind-summoning kings that did not have the potential to become demons right now could not become demons. They just needed opportunities and time to grow and evolve. However, this did not mean that they had no hope of becoming demons. Compared to the wind-summoning kings that already had the potential to become demons, it was still 1,000 times more difficult to become demons. But there was still hope after all. Lei Jiuxiao's cultivation method for the wind-summoning physique had long since become a cultivation method for the wind-summoning clan to become a demon after being tempered and modified by the demon ascension tribulation. Apart from having the mystical quality of combining with the other 5 cultivation methods to form the wind-summoning physique of the Heavenly Wind Emperor, it was the best cultivation method for the wind-summoning clan to cultivate a demon body. These wind-summoning kings with the potential to become demons were naturally more intelligent than the other wind-summoning kings, but they still could not compare to the wind-summoning king. Hence, this wind king technique didn't mix with them at all. With a casual point of his finger, streams of demonic chi containing the most basic part of the wind-summoning technique directly rushed into the bodies of the wind-summoning techniques, transforming them into the instincts of the wind-summoning techniques, guiding them to absorb all sorts of yuan qi in the air and convert them into demonic qi, refining their bodies and changing their intrinsic qualities. Chapter 5:12. After Lei Jiuxiao ordered the wind-summoning king to teach the demon technique, he said to the experts present, "Fellow Taoists, what do you think about the birth of the demon clan?" His tone was very calm, but when Taoist Tai Long and the others heard it, they knew that Lei Jiuxiao was testing them. After all, although they were all at the peak of the perfected immortal realm, there were definitely differences in their knowledge. It was impossible for them to completely understand the context of this matter. Lei Jiuxiao asked this to know the extent of everyone's understanding of the demon clan. If they could understand it clearly, it would naturally be good, and Lei Jiuxiao could arrange what to do. If they could not, the outcome would probably be completely different. Knowing what Lei Jiuxiao meant, Taoist Tai Long and the others looked at each other and smiled. "Fellow Taoist, why do you need to test? When the demon clan is born, there will be a tribulation. This already means that the demon clan has great luck. If the plan is good, there will be endless benefits. If the plan is bad, I'm afraid that we will be doomed eternally." Everyone seemed to have communicated with each other through some extremely obscure means. At this moment, Taoist Tai Long was the one who spoke. Lei Jiuxiao's expression did not change at all when he heard Taoist Tai Long's words. Obviously, he was not too satisfied with this answer, or rather, he felt that Taoist Tai Long still had many contents that he did not say. Taoist Tai Long was slightly shocked when he saw Lei Jiuxiao's performance. Suddenly, he came to a realization. The person in front of him was not a connate god like them. Normally, he was a cultivator who was raised by heaven and earth and sought alone. Instead, he was the disciple of the person who was respected as a Tao Lord by the entire primordial world. His knowledge was at least tens of thousands of times richer than what they had previously thought. The meaning of the birth of the demon clan might be complicated and obscure in the eyes of other living beings, but in his eyes, it was as obvious as looking at the lines on his palm. After understanding this, Taoist Tai Long made a prompt decision and decided to spit out everything he knew. He immediately said, "Of course, the most important thing about the birth of the demon clan is about the main character of the world." At this point, Taoist Tai Long was unwilling and did not need to continue. When the others heard Tai Long Taoist's words, a slight surprise appeared on their faces. However, this surprise was because Tai Long Taoist had mentioned this matter, and not because of the matter itself. Just by looking at their expressions, one could tell that what Taoist Tai Long had said was something they had discussed and deduced. When Lei Jiuxiao heard Taoist Tai Long's words, he was shocked. Lightning flashed in his eyes as he stared at Taoist Tai Long for a good while. Then, he laughed, "So everyone already knows about it. Looks like the true foundation of our cooperation has already been formed." When everyone heard this, their expressions did not change, but their eyes were filled with awe. The concept of the protagonists of the world was something that the 18 of them had come up with after spending a long time in the virtual world. It was the only concept that could explain why there were so many abnormalities in the birth of the demon race. It was precisely because of this that they were unwilling to directly reveal this concept to Lei Jiuxiao from the very beginning. Instead, they wanted to conceal this concept. It was also why they were so surprised when Taoist Tai Long Taoist spoke. Lei Jiuxiao actually already knew about this concept that they had only grasped after discussing and deducing for a long time. In fact, he seemed to know it even more clearly than them. How could they not be awed by this? How could they not be shocked? Does having a master give him such a huge advantage? This person's process of becoming a true immortal was right under our noses, yet he can actually understand something that we would need to spend tens of thousands of years of cultivation to deduce. For a moment, only similar thoughts flashed in everyone's minds. Lei Jiuxiao did not care about everyone's expressions. He smiled and said, "The foundation of this matter has been determined. Then, let us discuss what to do next to avoid danger and obtain benefit. I don't know what everyone thinks, but I can speak." Worldly pleasantries and hypocrisy were completely meaningless to existences of their level. Lei Jiuxiao naturally would not waste any time on such things, so he got straight to the point and went straight to the point. Everyone present was a manifestation of will condensed from various kinds of vitality. Due to the haste of the matter, these manifestations were not too condensed. They twisted and trembled slightly as their minds and wills fluctuated. This caused the ancestral demon palace to appear rather illusory and mystical. Sha Zhen was a treasure refined with the help of the 5-spirit flower, which was why she had the power to fight against everyone. Her true cultivation was rather lacking, so her body was also the most illusory. The fluctuation of her mind and wills was also the greatest. After her body twisted and changed for a long time, she said, "Right now, the wind-beckoning king is the only one left in the demon race. No matter how promising he is in the future, it will definitely be difficult for him to achieve anything. I think what we should do is first increase the number of demons." "That's right." The surrounding people nodded in agreement when they heard Sha Zhen's words. Even if that's the case, the demon clan is formed from the cultivation of countless kinds of strange beasts. Every kind of strange beast has a different physique. In order to turn these strange beasts into the demon clan, the cultivation method required is different. What should we do? I wonder if anyone has a feasible solution? Lei Jiuxiao smiled and said, "Seeing how confident you are, you must have a solution." "Just say it," Taoist Tai Long said with a smile. Taoist Tai Long's seniority was extremely high, and his cultivation was also the most profound. He had a rather high status among the 18 people. Although he could not be the leader of the other 17 people, his opinions would not be easily refuted. Therefore, he had always been the one to answer Lei Jiuxiao. "Ha ha!" Lei Jiuxiao chuckled when he heard Taoist Tai Long's words and said, "What I mean is that we should carefully comprehend the essence of the demon race and use it to derive a basic cultivation method that can transform all beasts into demons. We will then announce it to the world and let the demon race comprehend the cultivation method on their own and develop naturally. We'll talk about the future when they are accomplished in their cultivation." Although this method is feasible, isn't it too pessimistic? A middle-aged man who was surrounded by the silhouette of a river frowned and said, "That's right. The development of the demon race is of great importance. If we allow it to develop as it is very likely that it will go astray and bring us a lot of trouble in the future." Another young man who seemed to have a beast swimming in his body frowned as well. The others looked at Lei Jiuxiao as well, waiting to see how he would answer. Clearly, they were quite worried about what the two of them were talking about. What everyone is worried about is quite reasonable, but that is something we will have to do in the future. The foundation of our plan is the existence of the demon race, so we naturally need a large number of them. Apart from this method, I can't think of any other way to increase the number of the demon race as quickly as possible. As for how to prevent the demon race from going astray and bringing us trouble, we can discuss and deduce it in detail. It is not impossible to avoid it. Lei Jiuxiao smiled. Chapter 5:13. Can you explain? The middle-aged man who was shrouded in the illusion of a river frowned and asked. Everyone present was knowledgeable and could naturally see the drawbacks of the demonic race's foundation, which was indescribably huge. Lei Jiuxiao's words naturally could not dispel all of their worries. Lei Jiuxiao smiled and looked at the different expressions of the people present. However, all of them were more or less hesitant. He casually pointed down and said, "Everyone, have you forgotten that there is a virtual world in the primordial world?" Daoist Tai Long and the others could not help but come to a sudden realization when they heard Lei Jiuxiao's words. Their hesitation from before had completely disappeared. The difficulty of cultivation after attaining the Tao could be seen from the fact that there were millions of itinerant immortal cultivators in the primordial world, but only a few dozen perfected immortals. These 18 existences at the peak of the true immortal realm were able to cultivate to such an extraordinary realm in a short period of a few thousand years. Talent and fortuitous encounters were naturally important, but what was even more important was their hearts that pursued the Tao wholeheartedly, and their thousands of years of painstaking cultivation. It was precisely because of this painstaking cultivation that they naturally could not devote too much effort to the various changes in the outside world. Just like the changes in the primordial world, the virtual world and the Yellow Springs network that covered the entire primordial world, although they knew of its existence, its various conveniences, and its various inconceivable mysteries, they could not spend too much time thinking about how they could use it. They naturally thought of using the connection in the virtual world to discuss the Tao, but other things, such as using the conveniences to guide the demonic race, were not something they could think of in a short time. Although Lei Jiuxiao did not say too much, everyone present was not ordinary. As long as he pointed out the key points, everything would naturally be no more difficult. Immediately, everyone expressed their agreement with Lei Jiuxiao's idea. They wanted to gather everyone's wisdom to create a cultivation method that could transform the endless beasts in the world into demonic qi and turn them into demonic race. After coming to a consensus, Lei Jiuxiao gestured to everyone. With a single thought, his consciousness entered the virtual world and appeared in a pitch-black and boundless void. After a while, his spiritual consciousness was slightly touched. 18 strands of soul awareness appeared in his senses one after another. When Lei Jiuxiao sensed these 18 strands of spiritual awareness, a network of spiritual awareness was established between these 18 strands of spiritual awareness, forming a virtual spiritual awareness space. After thousands of years of development, the technology to build a network of spiritual awareness had improved many times compared to when this virtual world had just been formed. All kinds of standards and procedures had long been established. If the construction of this spiritual awareness space came out of thin air, it would naturally be extremely complicated and troublesome. But with the help of the various standards and procedures, only a few thoughts were needed to determine some variables. Although it was still difficult to almost impossible for ordinary people, for a powerful existence like Lei Jiuxiao, it was not the slightest pressure. With the establishment of this spiritual knowledge space, Taoist Tai Long and the others appeared in this spiritual knowledge space. The structure of the spiritual sense space was similar to the structure of the ancestral demon hall in the untainted world, but it was more majestic, vast, and magnificent. The image of the spiritual sense space was unlimited as long as the spiritual sense could support it. Naturally, it would not be limited by the environment of the untainted world. It could completely replicate Lei Jiuxiao's idea and make it perfect. "Everyone, please!" Lei Jiuxiao called out to everyone. Then he sat on the throne corresponding to the ancestral demon hall. Taoist Tai Long and the others also gestured to each other and sat on their respective thrones. As they sat down, in the untainted world, in the ancestral demon hall, except for Lei Jiuxiao, the bodies of Taoist Tai Long and the others, which were formed by the condensation of various kinds of primordial qi, suddenly collapsed. However, the primordial qi did not dissipate out of the ancestral demon hall. Instead, it constantly circulated and changed inside the hall, as if it wanted to evolve into various mysterious existences. The bodies of Taoist Tai Long and the others collapsed because they had already dispersed their thoughts. The reason why the various primordial qi that originally formed the bodies of Taoist Tai Long and the others had such a change was because the primordial qi had been infiltrated by the thoughts of the powerful existences at the peak of the perfected immortal realm. There was a trace of mysterious change, and it already had a completely different quality from the primordial qi in the outside world. It had become an independent entity with some kind of indistinct instinct. Naturally, it would not leave the hall and mix with the primordial qi in the outside world. It was naturally not an easy task to create a cultivation method that allowed all the beasts in the world to cultivate and transform their essence into the demon clan. It could even be said that it was 100 times more difficult and complicated than creating the cultivation method for Lei Jiuxiao to create the body of Feng Tianzi. Even if he and the 18 powerful existences at the peak of the perfected immortal realm gathered together, he was not confident that he could create the cultivation method in a short period of time. However, Lei Jiuxiao's concept of time was also calculated in thousands of years. It was precisely because he did not know how long it would take to create this mysterious cultivation method that he decided to create it in the virtual world, where time could be sped up by 10 times, and gather everyone's strength to create the cultivation method. The difficulty of creating a cultivation method in the virtual world was not much different from that in the outside world, but after all, it was 10 times more time. For those who were anxious to see the demon clan flourish, there was naturally no need to say what choice they would make. In the spiritual sense network that Lei Jiuxiao and Taoist Tai Long and the others had constructed, strange beasts appeared out of thin air in the hall one after another. Among them were Zhao Feng, Kueiniu, Fu Ying, Ho Qi, and the others. Qi, filthy clouds, all sorts of strange beasts that Lei Jiuxiao had never seen or heard of before. These strange beasts came from the spiritual senses of Lei Jiuxiao and Taoist Tai Long and the others. However, they did not come from their memories. It was naturally impossible to create a cultivation method that could turn strange beasts into demons without real strange beasts to study and deduce. Taoist Tai Long and the others were focused on cultivation. Even if they had some understanding of some strange beasts, it was impossible for them to remember all the details of these strange beasts. Naturally, it was impossible for them to display them through their spiritual senses. These strange beasts actually came from this boundless virtual world. Lei Jiuxiao, Taoist Tai Long, and the others had used their powerful telepathic senses to project the strange beasts that existed within a huge range around their bodies in the virtual world into this spiritual sense space. When Luo Fan first created this virtual world, he passed down a spell that allowed all living beings in the world to enter and leave this virtual world. Even living beings without complete spiritual senses and intelligence could enter this virtual world based on their instincts, let alone the countless strange beasts that covered the primordial world. These strange beasts did not have complete intelligence and could not have much autonomy in this virtual world. However, it was precisely because of this that their projections in this virtual world were no different from those in the primordial world. Instead, it was more useful for Lei Jiuxiao and the others to use as reference. Chapter 5:14. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years had passed in the primordial world. During these 1,000 years, there had been even more changes in the primordial world. An existence that called itself the Demon Clan began to emerge in the primordial world. These Demon Clan were formed by some of the countless beasts in the world who had cultivated into human form by chance. They possessed all sorts of unfathomable abilities that only cultivators possessed. The appearance of these Demon Clan was actually not very conspicuous in the primordial world, and it did not attract too much attention from other living beings. After all, there were countless Khanate beast clans in the primordial world, and each of them had countless Khanate beast clans. In this way, the number of Khanate beasts in the primordial world had even reached an indescribable level. Under these circumstances, some of the Khanate beasts had been enlightened by chance and knew how to cultivate. They had cultivated into a humanoid form similar to the Khanate Dao body and stepped onto the path of cultivation. What was strange about that? Therefore, even though these Khanate beasts that had stepped onto the path of cultivation called themselves the Demon Clan, it was not enough to attract too much attention. Of course, there were still many knowledgeable and extremely sensitive people in the primordial world. However, even if these existences existed, there were still very few of them. Moreover, they all possessed great abilities, and at the very least, they stood at the peak of the primordial world. They even felt that they did not have enough time to cultivate, so how could they have the time to pay attention to the appearance of the Demon Clan that they thought was insignificant? As a result, even though the demon race had already made a name for themselves in the primordial world and was truly known by many cultivators, they were only treated as an ordinary cultivator race. They were only seen as an existence of the same nature as the many post-celestial beings that had ascended from Luo Fan's lesser Kiliacosm. 1,000 years was equivalent to 10,000 years in the virtual world. Compared to the entire primordial world and the almost endless lifespans of many cultivators, this period of time was nothing. However, it was already enough for any cultivator to do many things that seemed impossible in the past. For example, in the virtual world, Lei Jiuxiao, Daoist Tai Long, and the others had practically never stopped for the past 10,000 years, and they had been concentrating their minds on doing that one thing at every moment. At this moment, in the spiritual sense space that Lei Jiuxiao had created, the originally endless Khanate beasts that encompassed almost every species in the primordial world had completely disappeared. In their place was a huge, extremely ordinary-looking humanoid figure. Meanwhile, Lei Jiuxiao and the others were staring at the phantom with burning eyes. In fact, this humanoid shadow was extremely solid and real. Judging from its form and quality, it was not much different from a human body condensed from real blood and flesh. The reason why it was called a phantom was because the humanoid figure was in a strange state. Although it was not transparent, under the effect of some extremely profound laws, outsiders could see all the changes in its body even without using any abilities. This included the flow of power within its body, the circulation of its mental will, and the changes of the soul in its sea of consciousness. Everything, as long as it was related to cultivation, was revealed without any concealment. This was clearly not something that a real living being could possess. Only a simple phantom that demonstrated a cultivation method could possess this. At this moment, an incomparably complex and mysterious transformation was taking place within the body of this illusory human figure. A cultivation method that seemed extremely simple, but contained boundless mysteries that seemed to conform to the unfathomable and supreme Great Tao slowly circulated within his body. Of course, this cultivation method was not just about the flow of power. It also required the coordination of one's mental will, the circulation of a certain mental cultivation method, and even the coordination of the external environment. It was not just about circulating the power within one's body according to a certain path. As the cultivation method circulated, the essence of the sun and moon in the surroundings slowly seeped into the humanoid figure's orifices through an extremely subtle and profound method. It was gradually absorbed into its body, and through some complicated and profound changes, an extremely weak strand of demonic chi was formed within its body. After this strand of demonic chi was formed, it flowed through its Naiwan palace and its sea of consciousness, and a strand of it seeped into the humanoid figure's extremely blurry and turbid soul. It brought out strands of impurities, causing the soul to become slightly purer and almost undetectable. The impurities that were brought out from the soul also strengthened the demonic chi slightly, causing the demonic chi to become a little more resilient after flowing through the soul. It flowed back into the humanoid figure's body and gradually accumulated in various parts of its body, turning into 129,600 faintly discernible cyclones that were distributed inside and outside of its body. Those 129,600 cyclones corresponded to the 129,600 hidden or obvious orifices on the body of this born Taoism aptitude. This cultivation method was clearly the one that Lei Jiuxiao and the dozen or so others had created over the course of 10,000 years. They had even delayed their own cultivation to create it. It was the foundation that allowed all beasts in the world to cultivate and turn into demons. The 129,600 cyclones that appeared inside and outside of the humanoid figure's body could be said to be the most essential and profound part of this foundational cultivation method. The positions of these 129,600 cyclones were extremely exquisite, and they were in accordance with the great Tao of heaven and earth, as well as the truths of the universe. As long as one cultivated according to this cultivation method, there was no need to understand the positions of these 129,600 cyclones. The demonic power would naturally be distributed in the most precise, most perfect, and most profound positions. And as one's cultivation deepened, these 129,600 cyclones would continue to grow stronger and stronger. Finally, at a certain moment, the primordial world would respond, and these cyclones would turn from nothingness into reality. In the end, they would completely solidify and turn into 129,600 orifices. When that time came, no matter what form the cultivator who cultivated this cultivation method originally had, even if he was the size of a speck of dust, he would be able to directly transform into a human form. His size would also grow to the size of an ordinary born Taoism aptitude. Of course, this was only the effect of these 129,600 cyclones. Even after cultivating such a body, this creature could not be called a demon clan. A true demon needed a complete spiritual consciousness, a considerable amount of intelligence, and a future of cultivation. And this required the originally turbid and blurry soul to become clear. Compared to the formation of the 129,600 orifices, this was almost like defying the heavens and changing one's fate. It was even more complicated and difficult. Chapter 5:15. Lei Jiuxiao and the others all smiled and relaxed as they watched the changes in the illusory humanoid figure. 10,000 years of incessant thinking and operating their spiritual senses was definitely not an easy task for the people present. At this moment, seeing that everything had reached their expected goal, they were naturally very relaxed. It's finally done. Once this demonic art is completed, the number of demonic beasts will increase exponentially. The foundation is set. Lei Jiuxiao smiled. As he spoke, he made a grabbing motion and the illusory humanoid figure turned into a thick book in a flash. Countless characters, patterns, runes, and talismans flashed across the air. After hovering around the book for countless times, they abruptly rushed into the book, causing the 4 extremely complicated characters of Pangu to appear on the cover of the book, Basic Spirit Art. After the book was formed, it shook slightly and split into 19 similar books before scattering in all directions. In the blink of an eye, they had already landed in front of everyone, including Lei Jiuxiao. Everyone clearly knew what Lei Jiuxiao meant. Without any hesitation, they casually waved their hands and put away the basic demonic art in front of them with their respective divine abilities. After greeting Lei Jiuxiao, they gradually faded and disappeared from the spiritual sense space. Lei Jiuxiao smiled slightly when he saw everyone leave. He lifted a step and the entire spiritual sense space slowly collapsed. By the time he walked out of the door, the spiritual sense space had already disappeared without a trace. Lei Jiuxiao's consciousness also returned to his body in the virtual world. With another shake, the body in the virtual world suddenly collapsed and turned into nothingness. His consciousness directly crossed the boundary between virtual and real, returning to his body in the ancestral demon palace. As his consciousness returned, Lei Jiuxiao's eyes, which had been closed for 1,000 years, slowly opened. In an instant, there seemed to be a soundless rumble of thunder. 2 bolts of lightning suddenly shot out from Lei Jiuxiao's eyes, streaking across the void and disappearing in a flash. It was as if they would forever remain in the world. Compared to 1,000 years ago, the fixed structure of the ancestral demon palace was not much different. It was just like when it was first built. However, the various types of yuan qi that were filled with it had undergone a tremendous change. Above the hall, all kinds of mysterious yuan qi condensed into 18 regions, clearly dividing the upper half of the hall. These 18 regions were like 18 heavens and 18 worlds. Amidst the tumbling of the yuan qi, it formed 18 completely different but self-contained systems, forming a whole. The scenes displayed were interwoven in one place, as complex and mysterious as the real heaven and earth with different rules. These 18 regions were formed by the yuan qi condensed from the will projections of Taoist Tai Long and the others after 1,000 years of evolution. The peak of the realm of true immortality was not a very profound realm in the entire cultivation realm. Above it were the realm of golden immortal, the realm of primordial unity, the realm of zenith heaven, and even the realm of chaotic prime. It seemed that the realm of true immortality was just the beginning of cultivation. However, that was only from a relative perspective. From an absolute perspective, the realm of true immortality was already an extremely profound realm. Living beings at this level had already escaped the cycle of life and death, and it was even to the extent that their souls and thoughts were already capable of conforming to some sort of supreme law of the Grand Tao. They possessed countless unbelievable divine abilities and unimaginable might. Such an existence only needed a single thought to move mountains and overturn the seas, defy the heavens, and change fate. The will of such an existence was attached to the yuan qi and condensed the yuan qi into its body. It was imaginable how great the changes to the yuan qi that had condensed into its body would be. After the wills of Taoist Tai Long and the others left, the yuan qi underwent a mysterious change and was about to evolve into a mysterious existence. If it was in another place where there was no concealment, under the endless yuan qi of the world, the mystery contained in the yuan qi would not be maintained for too long. At most, it would collapse and dissipate after a few years, causing the yuan qi to turn back into ordinary yuan qi and fuse with the endless yuan qi of the world. There would no longer be anything special about it. However, the actual situation was not like that. Because of the existence of the ancestral demon hall, the yuan qi was completely isolated from the outside world, so it was free from the impact of the yuan qi from the outside world. In this hall, the yuan qi stimulated and promoted each other, causing the mysterious force that was formed by the will of the true immortal realm to grow. This state lasted for 1,000 years. After 1,000 years of stimulation and promotion, today, the yuan qi had truly formed and transformed into 18 regions, forming 18 illusory regions. These 18 regions contained a trace of the Tao that Taoist Tai Long and the others had cultivated throughout their lives, and contained a little bit of the Tao state of their cultivation technique. It could be said that if a living being with exceptional aptitude could meditate and comprehend these 18 regions, they would be able to comprehend 18 types of cultivation techniques through them. Although these 18 types of cultivation techniques could not be compared to the Tao that Taoist Tai Long and the others cultivated, and were even worlds apart in terms of completeness, they were part of the supreme cultivation techniques that allowed Taoist Tai Long and the others to stand out among the billions of living beings in the primordial world and achieve their current peak status. Its mystery was definitely not ordinary. It was not difficult for an ordinary living being to achieve Tao. Lei Jiuxiao raised his head slightly and saw the 18 regions above the ancestral demon palace. He instantly understood the mystery of these regions. Indeed, every existence that can stand above all living beings must not be underestimated. Looking at the scene above, such a thought flashed across Lei Jiuxiao's mind. With Lei Jiuxiao's intelligence, he understood the plan of Taoist Tai Long and the others after understanding the mystery of the 18 regions. They clearly wanted to leave an indelible mark in the ancestral demon palace, so that all living beings who came here in the future would know their status in the demon clan, so as to avoid the hidden danger of being casually thrown away by Lei Jiuxiao. In the beginning, Taoist Tai Long and the others did not participate in the matter of the demon clan voluntarily. They were forced by Lei Jiuxiao and had no choice but to do so. However, once they decided to join, they would definitely go all out and use all means to protect their own interests. They had to use all kinds of methods to prevent being used as stepping stones and thrown away after using them. That was why they had this plan. Chapter 5:16. With a single thought from Lei Jiuxiao, a figure that exuded boundless majesty like a king who controlled the world walked out of his body and appeared right next to him. The figure looked exactly the same as Lei Jiuxiao, but if they didn't appear in the same place, it would be difficult for anyone to connect them and think that they were the same person. At that moment, the figure stood to the side while Lei Jiuxiao sat on the throne. However, the feeling he gave off was that he was even more dignified and had the aura of a king. His status was even higher. The feeling of dislocation was unimaginably profound. The figure was naturally the lightning son of heaven's clone that Lei Jiuxiao had cultivated. The clone had been in the primordial world for 1,000 years and in the virtual world for 10,000 years. It had been hidden in Lei Jiuxiao's sea of consciousness, constantly using the various mysteries in Lei Jiuxiao's sea of consciousness to refine and improve itself. At that moment, although his cultivation level hadn't improved much compared to 1,000 years ago, his control over the various powers he possessed was thousands of times stronger than 1,000 years ago. It could be said that the current lightning son of heaven's clone was at least 100 times stronger than 1,000 years ago. The lightning son of heaven's clone was a part of Lei Jiuxiao, so he naturally didn't need Lei Jiuxiao's orders. After appearing, he took a step forward and disappeared from the ancestral demon palace. When he reappeared, he was already somewhere in the middle of the mountain range. The yuan qi in this area wasn't as dense as other areas, but the type of yuan qi was more special. It was more harmonious and easier to absorb and fuse. When the lightning son of heaven arrived above this area, he saw waves of demonic aura flickering below. Clearly, there were many demons of average cultivation cultivating below. When the lightning son of heaven's clone appeared, there was an indescribable aura of a king that pressed down from the sky. It directly pressed down on the area within a radius of 10,000 kilometers where the demon clan was located. Following the pressure of this imposing aura, the originally indistinct demonic aura suddenly trembled and skyrocketed dozens of times before disappearing without a trace in an instant. Following that, a wave of demonic aura shot into the sky from the top of the mountain, shooting towards the lightning son of heaven's clone. The demonic aura was extremely condensed and pure, like a crystal-clear black jade. When it arrived dozens of meters away from the lightning son of heaven's clone, it suddenly condensed into a figure. It was the Wind King. Compared to 1,000 years ago, this Wind King had undergone a huge change. The accumulation of demonic energy in his body was more than 100 times stronger than 1,000 years ago. Although his cultivation level did not increase by much and was still at the loose immortal realm, the harmonious feeling that his body gave off was enough to make anyone who saw him feel the fine control he had over his own demonic energy. This little demon greets ancestor. When the Wind King saw the Son of Lightning, it did not dare to be slow. It knelt in the void several hundred feet away. The lightning son of heaven's clone had appeared before the wind-beckoning king had become a demon. The wind-beckoning king naturally recognized it and knew of its relationship with Lei Jiuxiao, which was why he addressed it as such. The doppelganger of the son of thunder didn't wake him up. He only said, "How many demons have been born in 1,000 years?" His words were ordinary and his tone was indifferent, but it was filled with an indescribable pressure. Anyone who heard this voice would feel as if they were being questioned by the heavens. No matter how secretive the question was, they couldn't hide it. Yes, the wind-beckoning monarch didn't dare to hesitate and acknowledged. Then, he told the clone of the Son of Thunder about the results of his hard work over the past 1,000 years, including how many demons he had nurtured, the cultivation of each demon, how he had chosen this place as a settlement, and how he had dealt with the other demons who had yet to become demons. He did not leave out any details. The lightning son of heaven's expression did not change at all after hearing the wind-summoning monarch's explanation. At the same time, he gained a better understanding of the wind-beckoning king's achievements over the past 1,000 years. Although it was easy for the wind-beckoning king to become a demon, it was actually very easy to create a demon. In fact, the reason why the wind-beckoning king could become a demon so easily was because he was a king of the wind-beckoning race. The more ordinary one's mind was, the less important it was. In fact, if the person who imparted the cultivation technique to the wind-beckoning body was not like Lei Jiuxiao, and the cultivation technique was created by Lei Jiuxiao using the wind-beckoning king's body as his main body, the difficulty of the wind-beckoning king becoming a demon would increase by at least 10,000 times. The time needed would also increase by 10,000 times. It would definitely not be as easy as before. Even the wind-beckoning king was like that, let alone the ordinary wind-beckoning race. In the past 1,000 years, there were only 13 existences in the entire wind-beckoning race that had truly broken through the limits of their race and become demons. Among them was even the number 1 demon in the primordial world, the wind-beckoning king. As for the others, the wind-beckoning king had searched more than 10 wind-beckoning races and found more than 500 of his kind with the potential to become demons. They either could not break through their life essence for a long time or they went berserk. Even their simple spiritual consciousness collapsed and died, and no more demons were born. The reason why the demon clan chose this location to settle down was because of the geographical factors that made the yuan qi abnormally smooth and could be easily converted into demonic energy for the demon clan to cultivate. The most important reason was that they could see the location of the ancestral demon palace from afar. The wind-beckoning king had an indescribable reverence and yearning for the ancestral demon hall. That reverence made him not dare to let the newly born demons stay too close to the ancestral demon hall, in case the demons desecrated the ancestral demon hall. That yearning made him unwilling to see the ancestral demon hall. That was why this area was chosen. The lightning son of heaven's clone understood the changes and nodded. "Summon all the demons." The wind-beckoning king did not dare to hesitate and responded. He stood up and turned to the ground, opening his mouth and letting out a low but dignified roar. The low roar was extremely penetrating. It even caused the essence qi in the void to tremble violently, producing a huge ripple that could be seen with the naked eye. With the roar, the dozen or so demonic auras below shook slightly. They left their original positions and shot towards the wind-beckoning king. Their cultivation levels were far inferior to the wind-beckoning king's. They could not even cultivate to the realm of turning their bodies into light. Therefore, their figures could still be seen through the light. Some of them were fast and some were slow. The density of the demonic aura around them was also thick and thin. That was for sure. Apart from that, their appearances were also extremely strange, all different from one another. Among them, some had human bodies and pig heads, some had human heads and pig bodies, some had human bodies but pig trotters, some had huge ears, and some had huge tails. Seeing the appearances of the demons, the lightning son of heaven's clone finally understood why the wind-beckoning king did not bring them out previously. Their appearances were indeed a little embarrassing. Chapter 5:17. Creation, returned to 5K. The aura of the lightning emperor's clone was as deep as the ocean. It was naturally not something that the demons who had yet to cultivate a complete human body could resist. Although the demons were not very intelligent in front of the lightning emperor's clone, they knew how to react without the wind-caller king's instructions. The lightning emperor's clone scanned the demons and knew their cultivation level. Although he was disappointed, he knew that it was normal and was not surprised. He said, "It's passable. There's a basic cultivation technique here that can be used with the wind-beckoning body." As he said that, he pointed casually and a bolt of lightning charged out of his hand. It gathered in the void and turned into a book that flickered with lightning in the blink of an eye, landing in the wind-caller king's hand. That was the basic demonic technique that Lei Jiuxiao and the others had spent 10,000 years in the virtual world to cultivate. The wind-caller king's eyes lit up when he touched the book. Although he had not truly read the contents of the book, it must be extremely profound since it was given by the patriarch. He could tell from the cultivation technique of the wind-beckoning body that he had obtained back then. He knelt down immediately and said gratefully, "Thank you for the technique, patriarch." The other demons seemed to have woken up from a dream when they saw the wind-caller king's performance. They kowtowed continuously and shouted along with the wind-caller king. The lightning emperor's clone's expression was cold and his eyes flickered. This technique is the foundation of the demon race's cultivation and also the source. Don't stay here anymore. Find all the demons you can find and pass this technique down. Don't neglect it. I understand. I won't let you down, patriarch. The wind-caller king knew that it was meant for him the moment he heard that. His expression turned solemn, and he did not dare to think too much, shouting loudly right away. It seemed like even if the lightning son of heaven's clone asked him to die immediately, he would not hesitate. The lightning emperor's clone acknowledged softly when he saw that. He turned around and took a step forward, disappearing before the wind-caller king. The wind-beckoning king only stood up carefully after he disappeared for a long time. The other demons remained kneeling in the air, not daring to move. Clearly, they had yet to recover from the powerful aura released by the lightning son of heaven's clone. This cultivation technique was bestowed by the old ancestor. All of you must work hard in cultivating it. Do not slack off. Your achievements in the future will depend on your hard work, the wind-beckoning king said to the few of them. I understand. Those demons had average intelligence, but they respected and trusted the wind-beckoning monarch who had guided them to become demons. Whatever the wind-beckoning monarch said, they would do. They didn't need to spend too much effort to explain. The wind-summoning king naturally knew that the answer from these little demons did not mean that they understood what he said. He casually waved his hand and his body swayed. He turned into a ray of light and descended with these few demons. Soon, they landed in the cave that he lived in for the past 1,000 years. After more than half a day, joyous cheers could be heard from within the cave. Following that, waves of demonic chi soared into the sky and scattered in all directions, dispersing to the places where the demonic chi had been before. After a while, the wind-summoning king turned into a ray of black light and soared into the sky, heading into the distance. Over the past 1,000 years, although the demons did not appear everywhere like a geyser, they had appeared in the primordial world after all. As for the reason for their appearance, it was not naturally formed. The connate beasts comprehended it naturally, and not all of them were guided by the wind-summoning king. Even if the wind-summoning king wanted to guide them, he could not do it. After all, he only had a cultivation technique for the wind-summoning body. Even for the wind-summoning race, it was only an extremely small chance of guiding them to become demons, let alone other races. The birth of those demons was caused by Lei Jiuxiao and the others. If all living beings in the primordial world had intelligence, they could control it themselves. If they only had life and spiritual consciousness, they would naturally be attracted by the virtual world. They would naturally receive the method to enter the virtual world that Luo Fan had sent into the netherworld and leave a mental projection avatar in the virtual world. It was also because of this that there were so many beasts in the virtual world. Back then, Lei Jiuxiao and the others had chosen these beasts to study. They wanted to deduce the cultivation technique that all beasts could cultivate and become demons. Naturally, most beasts had to use it. Moreover, in the process of deduction and creation, there would naturally be some imperfections. However, there were still many mysteries left in the bodies of these beasts that could turn specific beasts into demons. Through the circulation of the virtual world, these remnants allowed the beasts in the primordial world to naturally comprehend some methods to become demons through some mysterious communication between the beasts in the virtual world and their main bodies. These methods to become demons were extremely imperfect, and most of them had hidden dangers. There were even many counterproductive effects. Even the chances of the beasts becoming demons were extremely small. However, the huge number of beasts that could not be described with numbers was still there. Those beasts were talented. Some of them had extremely rich accumulations and had extremely good opportunities. They had the possibility of becoming demons. As a result, the appearance of the demon race in the past 1,000 years had allowed all living beings in the primordial world to truly know about the demon race. Because there were very few members of the demon race, and it was extremely difficult for them to achieve anything, the demon race naturally banded together. As long as there was a chance, they would try their best to maintain a friendly attitude towards other demon races and try their best to communicate with as many demon races as possible. As a result, the wind-beckoning king knew the location of many demons in the past 1,000 years. Moreover, because he was the #1 demon in the primordial world, his status among the demons was rather high. It was perfect for him to impart demonic techniques to others. In Luo Fan's previous life on Earth, there was a theory that between any two people on a planet, even if they were separated by half a planet, even if it was a beggar at the bottom of a country's society and the head of another country, they could still contact each other through 25 people. To be more specific, if a person, no matter who he was or what his identity was, wanted to get to know any other person on this planet, he only needed to ask a friend of a friend to do it 25 times at most to achieve his goal. Whether this theory was true or false depended on the person's opinion. However, regardless of whether it was true or false, this theory showed how close the connection between intelligent living beings was and how fast the news spread. Although the primordial world was countless times larger than Earth, it followed similar rules. However, the number of 25 was much larger. Therefore, the spread of demonic techniques did not need too many beginnings. As long as the wind-beckoning king was the only one, it would slowly spread to all the demons in the primordial world. There was no need for Lei Jiuxiao and the others to personally teach them one by one. Lei Jiuxiao did not know about the theory of the 25 people in Luo Fan's previous life. However, with his experience and the knowledge he had accumulated after reincarnating in Luo Fan's spirit space for tens of millions of years, he had similar knowledge. Therefore, after the lightning son of heaven's clone handed the matter of imparting techniques to the wind-beckoning king, he did not care about it anymore. With the help of the flying mystical ability brought by the lightning son of heaven's clone, he turned into a ray of light and crossed hundreds of millions of kilometers at an unimaginable speed. Not long after, he traversed hundreds of millions of kilometers and arrived at a sea of clouds in the Linghai prefecture. The Sea of Clouds covered an area of more than 30 million kilometers. It covered the sky and the earth. Although there was light shining through the Sea of Clouds and onto the ground below, it made the area within 30 million kilometers extremely dark, as if it was eternal dusk. The lightning son of heaven's clone hovered in the void and looked up. He no longer held back anything in the Sea of Clouds. He had completely lifted the veil that covered his true appearance. The Sea of Clouds was about 80,000 kilometers above the ground. It was still thousands of kilometers away from the astral wind, lightning, and fire layer above. However, the Sea of Clouds was extremely thick. It almost brushed past the astral wind, lightning, and fire layer. As it surged, it would collide with the astral wind, lightning, and fire layer, causing the astral wind, lightning, and fire to react violently. Countless astral wind, lightning, and fire fell from it and struck the Sea of Clouds. From time to time, roars that sounded like strong winds could be heard from the Sea of Clouds. There were tens of thousands of living beings living in the Sea of Clouds. These living beings all belonged to the same race, the Nether Cloud. The Nether Cloud was one of the 6 connate wind beasts. It was also a mutated beast that Lei Jiuxiao needed to create the Wind Son of Heaven's cultivation technique. The Lightning Son of Heaven's clone raised his hand and grabbed at the air. As the Sea of Clouds surged, a mutated beast that was hundreds of meters wide slowly floated out of the Sea of Clouds as if it had been grabbed by a giant invisible hand. The mutated beast looked extremely strange. It was like a white cloud that surged in the void. Its body constantly changed shape, making it impossible to see its head, body, or limbs. The Lightning Son of Heaven's clone remained calm and expressionless. With a wave of his hand, the mutated beast appeared in front of him. The mutated beast roared crazily. Its voice was like a grade 12 gale shaking the world. Even the void seemed to tremble. The Lightning Son of Heaven's clone was the Son of Heaven. His words were the law, so he naturally wouldn't say much. However, with a frown, the aura of a ruler around him increased by 10,000 times, spreading out in all directions. With this aura, the Lightning Son of Heaven's clone's body, which was less than 3 meters tall, seemed even more majestic and vast than the Sea of Clouds that was 15 million kilometers wide. With this aura, the roars in the Sea of Clouds instantly disappeared. Even the rate at which the Sea of Clouds surged seemed to slow down by countless times, as if it was about to stop. The mutated beast was a Nether Cloud King. It was the king of one of the tens of thousands of nether clouds in the Sea of Clouds. It was much more intelligent than ordinary nether cloud. Similar to the wind-beckoning king, the Nether Cloud King was also the king of a tribe, but compared to the Lightning Son of Heaven, its aura was like comparing a firefly to the bright moon. Although the Lightning Son of Heaven's clone did not suppress it with his aura, he instantly knew how great the difference between them was. Unlike the wind-beckoning king, the Nether Cloud King was more adaptable. When it sensed the oppressive aura, it turned around and withdrew its cloud-like body. Its body shrank 100 times, and it turned into a strange existence that looked like a bat without wings, with extremely large eyes, extremely small ears, and an extremely wide mouth. This was the true body of the Nether Cloud. The cloud-like body from before was formed by the cloud transformation divine wind that the Nether Cloud King was born with. It had all kinds of unbelievable power. "Follow me," the Lightning Son of Heaven's clone said lightly. The Nether Cloud King's body trembled, and its eyes revealed a look of submission as it nodded continuously. The Lightning Son of Heaven's clone turned around and turned into a ray of light that continued to fly into the distance. The Nether Cloud King's body spewed out wisps of cloud gas that turned into the void and disappeared instantly. When it reappeared, it was already on a white cloud hundreds of thousands of miles away. In a flash, it went to another cloud through some unbelievable method. Using this mysterious method, it tried its best to follow behind the lightning son of heaven's clone. Looking at its speed, it was not much slower than the lightning son of heaven's clone. Leaping and flying through the clouds through some sort of inconceivable method was a mysterious power brought about by the cloud transformation divine wind. The cloud formed by the cloud transformation divine wind was not an ordinary cloud, but a type of mica. It had completely fused with the void, and was closely connected to the void of the primordial world. It also had a mysterious connection with the clouds within a certain range. Using this mysterious connection, it could shuttle between the clouds as if it was teleporting. The lightning son of heaven's clone did not stop to wait for the Nether Cloud King. Even though the Nether Cloud King was slower than him, he had no intention of bringing the Nether Cloud King along. Capturing the Nether Cloud King was another matter, but since the Nether Cloud King had already submitted, he naturally could not bring it along. The Emperor was not a driver. How could the Emperor use his own strength to bring his subjects along? A few days later, the lightning son of heaven's clone followed the 5 beasts back to the ancestral demon palace. The 5 beasts were much slower than the lightning son of heaven's clone. Even the fastest Nether Cloud King needed several hours to arrive after the lightning son of heaven's clone arrived at the ancestral demon palace. As for the slowest Wan Gong, it would take several days to arrive. For the past few days, Lei Jiuxiao had been resting in the hall with his eyes closed, quietly comprehending the various gains he had gained in the 10,000 years in the virtual world. During those 10,000 years, although he did not cultivate, he had been constantly mobilizing his own wisdom and working hard to deduce various cultivation methods. This was another form of cultivation for him, who had just broken through the itinerant immortal realm and become a perfected immortal realm. It allowed him to master this new power and a new body faster. In the 10,000 years, the time flow in the virtual world was 10 times faster than in the primordial world. His cultivation realm and dharma power had not improved much, but his mastery of the perfected immortal realm was incomparable to before. The increase in his strength was also thousands of times greater than before. In the past few days, he had been consolidating the progress he had made in the past 10,000 years. When the lightning son of heaven's clone returned, Lei Jiuxiao opened his eyes and looked at it. The experience of the lightning son of heaven's clone in the past few days had been transmitted to his mind through some mysterious and unbelievable channel. He did not need to ask. With a slight thought, the lightning son of heaven's clone walked into his body in a few steps and returned to his sea of consciousness. Although this lightning son of heaven's clone is my clone, it has been affected by the cultivation method of the lightning son of heaven's body. Its character is more like the Son of Heaven. Even I can't change it. I have to use it carefully. Such a thought flashed through Lei Jiuxiao's mind. A cultivation method that can affect the mind and character of a cultivator can't be considered a top cultivation method. I want to create a cultivation method for the body of heaven's wind, so I must avoid this as much as possible. Then, he thought again. Creating a cultivation method for the body of heaven's wind was the fundamental purpose of Lei Jiuxiao capturing the Wind King to study. The birth of the demon race was an accident. Although 1,000 years had passed since then, Lei Jiuxiao had not changed his mind. Of course, it was impossible for him to change his mind. For an existence like Lei Jiuxiao, who had already attained the earthly immortal Tao fruit and understood his own Tao, he would either not make a decision, or once he made a decision, he would do his best to complete it. Moreover, he faintly felt that creating a cultivation method for the body of heaven's wind was rather important to his future. Under such circumstances, he would naturally not change his mind. In the past few days, under his control, the lightning son of heaven's clone had traveled to the other 5 connate wind beasts' gathering areas in the spirit sea state. He had subdued one of the kings of each connate wind beast and made the 5 connate wind beasts rush towards the ancestral demon palace. After a few hours, the fastest Nether Cloud King finally sensed it. It shook its body and fell from the cloud, landing in front of the ancestral demon palace. The lightning son of heaven's clone did not tell it where its destination was, but it left a trace of its aura on it. Following the aura, the Nether Cloud King would not get lost and would naturally come to the ancestral demon palace. The lightning son of heaven's clone had been kept back into Lei Jiuxiao's sea of consciousness. The Nether Cloud King could not sense the aura of the lightning son of heaven's clone. For a moment it was a little hesitant and did not know whether it should step into the hall. Lei Jiuxiao sensed the arrival of the Nether Cloud King. With a casual grab, the Nether Cloud King rushed into the hall without any resistance and landed directly under his throne. When the Nether Cloud King saw Lei Jiuxiao and sensed the uncontrollable power on its body, it instantly understood that the existence in front of it was even more terrifying than the lightning son of heaven. It immediately prostrated itself on the ground to express its submission. Very sensible, not bad. Seeing the Nether Cloud King's performance, Lei Jiuxiao smiled slightly and said, "Although the Nether Cloud King's intelligence was not as good as ordinary people, it still had some ability to understand. It understood and immediately obeyed." In the 10,000 years in the virtual world, Lei Jiuxiao had long studied the structure of the 6 connate wind beasts. The connate wind beasts were naturally among the countless beasts in the prehistoric world. To create a method that all beasts could cultivate to become a demon, it was naturally impossible to bypass it. Chapter 518. Lei Jiuxiao casually made a grabbing motion, and a mysterious force appeared out of nowhere. It seeped into the Nether Cloud King's body, directly entering the depths of its body and even reaching its soul. Lei Jiuxiao could sense everything inside and outside of the Nether Cloud King's body with his mind. Although Lei Jiuxiao had already studied the characteristics of the Nether Cloud King's body when he was creating the basic demonic techniques in the virtual world, it was not for the cultivation method of the body of Emperor Feng after all. The results of his research were not suitable for the cultivation method of the body of Emperor Feng. That was why he needed to study it again. Of course, he had studied it once before, so he was unimaginably familiar with the structure of the Nether Cloud King's body. The difficulty of studying it was naturally much easier than starting from scratch. In addition, he had already created a portion of the cultivation method of the body of Emperor Feng 1,000 years ago. As a result, a cultivation method of the Nether Cloud King's body slowly took shape in his mind in just a few hours. After the cultivation method of the body of Emperor Feng was formed, Lei Jiuxiao casually waved his hand. A speck of light directly rushed out of his hand and rushed into the head of the Nether Cloud King. It formed a complicated and profound cultivation method in the depths of the Nether Cloud King's mind. It was extremely compatible with the Nether Cloud King, and it did not even need much intelligence to be able to easily cultivate it. The Nether Cloud King's reaction was similar to the Wind Beckoning King's. He was inexplicably excited and directly immersed himself in the cultivation method of the body of Nether Cloud King. Endless clouds surged out of the acupoints all over his body, gradually accumulating and forming a cloud cocoon. An indescribable suction force was constantly emitted from the cloud cocoon, sucking in all sorts of mysterious yuan qi from the outside world to provide motivation for his cultivation. Lei Jiuxiao naturally would not let the Nether Cloud King absorb all the yuan qi in the ancestral demon hall. With a casual point of his finger, a mysterious, invisible passage rushed out of the cloud cocoon, directly crossing the void and rushing out of the ancestral demon hall, connecting the cloud cocoon and the outside of the ancestral demon hall. In an instant, a huge amount of yuan qi poured into the cloud cocoon through the invisible passage, causing it to churn continuously. Although the cloud cocoon could absorb a huge amount of yuan qi, the Nether Cloud King's cultivation was limited, so it did not create too big of a phenomenon at the entrance of the tunnel. It only created a faint whirlpool. Lei Jiuxiao's eyes seemed to be open and closed at the same time. as lightning flashed in his eyes, his gaze pierced through the cloud cocoon and illuminated all the changes within it. He absorbed all the details of the sullied Cloud King's cultivation of the sullied cloud body into his senses, using them to deduce the strengths and weaknesses of the sullied cloud body. For the next few days, Liuqi King, Qiushi King, Miaodu King and Wan Gong King arrived at the ancestral demon hall. Lei Jiuxiao had already gathered all 6 connate wind beasts in the primordial world. In addition to the wind-beckoning king and the nether cloud king, the 6 connate wind beasts in the primordial world. He had the foundation to completely create the body of Son of Heaven Feng's cultivation method. 10 days later, there were 5 more egg-shaped cocoons of different heights in the ancestral demon hall. In essence, these egg-shaped cocoons were all formed by the divine wind that some innate wind beasts were born with. However, because of the different characteristics of the divine wind, the shapes they formed were also different. Some were formed by clouds, some were made by crystal-clear glass, some were made by piles of yellow soil, some were faintly discernible, and there was even one that looked like a condensed beam of light. The 5 egg-shaped cocoons were quite far apart from each other, occupying 5 directions of the hall. There was an invisible passage above each of the 5 egg-shaped cocoons that connected to the outside of the hall. Huge amounts of connate yuan qi, star essence qi, sun and moon essence qi, and other special kinds of yuan qi poured into the egg-shaped cocoons through these passages. Inside the egg-shaped cocoons, there were countless complex and unimaginable changes happening at every moment. Powerful auras constantly emanated from them, stirring up the yuan qi in the hall. Lei Jiuxiao was still sitting on his throne, looking down at the 5 egg-shaped cocoons. Lightning flashed in his eyes, and the depths of his pupils seemed to reflect the 5 twisting and changing figures in the egg-shaped cocoons. Obviously, these 5 egg-shaped cocoons were formed by the other 5 connate wind beasts, including the Nether Cloud King, who were cultivating their respective bodies' cultivation methods. Suddenly, the cloud cocoon formed by the Nether Cloud King shook slightly. The various kinds of yuan qi that had been pouring in from the invisible passage for the past 10 days suddenly stopped, and the blurry vortex that had formed at the entrance of the passage outside the hall suddenly collapsed, triggering the biggest change in the past 10 days. Then, endless light shone out from the cloud cocoon. The cloud cocoon disintegrated into countless tiny fragments that were as small as dust particles, exploding in all directions. After exploding several dozen meters, they surged back and madly burrowed into the figure at the center. Soon, they disappeared without a trace, revealing a figure inside the cloud cocoon. After this figure appeared, his eyes were filled with confusion. Only the occasional flash of intelligence could tell that this was a person with complete intelligence. The figure stood in a daze for a long time before coming to his senses. He knelt to Lei Jiuxiao and kowtowed. "This little Yao greets the ancestor." This figure was naturally the manifestation of the Nether Cloud King after cultivating the Nether Cloud physique. The reason why the Nether Cloud King could call himself a little Yao was because after he cultivated a human body, his spiritual sense became complete. Because of some inexplicable law, endless information naturally appeared in his mind, allowing him to understand his identity as a Yao clan member. He also knew what kind of existence this existence was. Lei Jiuxiao smiled slightly. He was not surprised that the Nether Cloud King would become a Yao clan member if he cultivated the Nether Cloud physique. Although the Nether Cloud physique was a part of the body of Heavenly Wind Sun's cultivation method and would not ultimately become a Yao clan member, since it could allow strange beasts to cultivate a human body and allow strange beasts to embark on the path of cultivation, wouldn't that allow strange beasts to become Yao clan members? With a wave of his hand, various kinds of yuan qi condensed into a book in his hand. He said, "There is a basic Yao technique here. You can pass it down to your clan to the rest of the Yao clan." With that, he handed the book to the Nether Cloud King. The Nether Cloud King took the book with ecstasy in his eyes. He repeatedly kowtowed to Lei Jiuxiao, and his voice was so excited that he couldn't even speak. After becoming a Yao clan member, his intelligence had just risen to the level of a normal person. Only then did he realize how foolish and pathetic he had been in the past. As a result, he had a deeper understanding of the meaning of the basic Yao technique than Lei Jiuxiao himself. He knew that after the Nether Cloud King obtained this basic Yao technique, their strength would soar by leaps and bounds. How could he not be grateful? Lei Jiuxiao raised his hand and waved lightly. The Nether Cloud King flew out of the ancestral Yao Palace without any ability to resist. Chapter 519. Among the 5 connate wind beasts, the Nether Cloud King was the first to arrive at the ancestral demon hall. He was also the first to receive the cultivation method imparted by Lei Jiuxiao, so it was only natural that he was the first to master the Nether Cloud body. The connate wind beasts chosen by the Lightning Son of Heaven's clone to be brought to the ancestral demon hall were all rather talented. Even if there was a gap between them, it was rather limited. Therefore, the amount of time it took for them to master the cultivation method imparted by Lei Jiuxiao was not much different. Over the next few days, apart from the Nether Cloud King, the other connate wind beasts broke out of their cocoons one after another. They refined their original bodies and transformed them into human forms. They also raised their intelligence to the level of a normal person. Through their cultivation process, Lei Jiuxiao had also made crucial adjustments and modifications to the cultivation techniques he had created. He had perfected the body of Emperor Fengtian, which originally had many flaws, into a supreme technique that could be truly cultivated. As for the connate wind beasts, Lei Jiuxiao imparted the basic demon techniques to them like he did to the Nether Cloud King. He told them to return to their clans and pass down the basic demon technique. Although Lei Jiuxiao's actions were an act of sending them off, it was a great favor to the demons. In fact, they were even more grateful than the cultivation techniques that Lei Jiuxiao had imparted to them. They left the ancestral Fei Palace excitedly with the foundational Fei technique. The departure of these demons was just an interlude to Lei Jiuxiao. He did not place too much hope on these demons. He still placed his real reliance on the Wind Beckoning King to spread the basic demon techniques in the primordial world. After all, the Nether Cloud King and the other demons had just become demons. They naturally did not have any friends. The only demons they knew were probably the ones who had become demons in the same hall as them. Naturally, they could not spread the basic demon techniques very quickly. After sending the last Wangong King away, Lei Jiuxiao thought of something. He raised his hand and grabbed at the air. A huge hole with a radius of 1,000 miles suddenly appeared in the layer of astral wind, thunder, and fire above. As the huge hole was broken, endless astral wind, thunder, and fire rained down from the hole and blasted straight at the mountain where the ancestral demon hall was located. In the blink of an eye, it was about to hit the ancestral demon hall. At this critical moment, Lei Jiuxiao casually flipped his other hand. An invisible passageway was instantly created, connecting from the top of his head to the main hall through some mysterious channel. Finally, it formed the other end of the passageway in front of the astral wind, thunder, and fire. As the passageway formed, endless astral winds, thunder, and fire rushed towards Lei Jiuxiao through the passageway. Lightning flashed in Lei Jiuxiao's eyes, and the various thunderbolts in the astral wind, thunder fire, and thunder wind suddenly collapsed, turning into strands of pure lightning that rushed straight into his sea of consciousness. The various flames seemed to be separated by an indescribable force, forming a strange fireball in front of him. This fireball was formed from countless types of mysterious flames. Each type of flame had a specific form. With countless types of flames intertwined together, the fireball turned into a chaotic color. It was extremely strange and mysterious. Apart from the thunder and fire, the various astral winds, divine winds, heavenly winds, and even ordinary winds began to undergo unimaginable changes under the influence of some mysterious force. The originally endless types of astral winds and divine winds, slowly transformed, and finally, everything was completely transformed into the 6 types of innate divine winds that the 6 connate wind beasts were born with. Giant capsule divine wind, cloud transformation divine wind, samadhi divine wind, void reality divine wind, destruction divine wind, and earth divine wind were the 6 types of divine winds that the 6 connate wind beasts were born with. These 6 types of divine winds were all different, and each type of divine wind possessed incredible power. When combined together, it could almost reach the supreme great Tao's source of wind, the true meaning of wind. The 6 types of divine winds continued to swirl in the void, continuously condensing, and finally formed a 6-colored auspicious cloud that floated above Lei Jiuxiao's head. With a thought, the cultivation method of the body of Emperor Feng slowly flowed through Lei Jiuxiao's mind. This cultivation method was formed from the combination of the body of wind summoning, the body of filthy cloud, the body of qi retention, the body of reality, the body of temple, and the body of Wan Gong. These 6 types of connate wind beasts cultivation methods were formed through a mysterious and complicated method. One could imagine the complexity of this cultivation method. However, it was created by Lei Jiuxiao bit by bit. To him, it was no secret. With a thought, he activated the cultivation method, and the 6 types of innate divine winds that formed the auspicious cloud above his head began to undergo incredible changes under the cultivation method's influence. The astral winds, lightning, and fire layer above the 90,000 miles had yet to close up, and there was still a hole in it. The astral winds, lightning, and fire did not stop for a moment, and arrived at the ancestral demon palace through the invisible passage that connected Lei Jiuxiao's head to the outside world. Then, Lei Jiuxiao used various mysterious methods to separate them, convert them, or be absorbed by the lightning sun of Emperor Feng's clone, condense them into chaotic fireballs at the side, or transform them into the 6 types of divine winds that were injected into the auspicious cloud. As for the 6 types of divine winds in the auspicious cloud, under the influence of the cultivation method, the changes became more and more intense, and more terrifying. Half a day later, the auspicious cloud had completely covered the entire hall. Even the 18 domains formed by the Yuan Qi left behind by Taoist Tai Long and the others were squeezed into a corner by the auspicious cloud, unable to compete with it. On the other hand, the various colors of light on the auspicious cloud had turned into a chaotic mess. It was just rumbling, but it was impossible to see what exactly was happening. Lei Jiuxiao's eyes were tightly shut at this moment. He sat on the throne with a cold expression, and his body was soft. He looked like he was asleep, but also like he was adjusting his breathing, or even more like his mind was wandering. Since Lei Jiuxiao wanted to create the cultivation method for the body of Emperor Feng, it naturally meant that he was interested in the body of Emperor Feng. Now that the cultivation method had been created, it was impossible for him not to cultivate it. At this moment, he was cultivating a body of Emperor Feng, just like how he cultivated the lightning sun of Emperor Feng's clone. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. During this month, the interior of the ancestral demon palace seemed to have stabilized, and there were not many changes. The auspicious cloud that was tumbling endlessly above Lei Jiuxiao's head, as if it was brewing some kind of huge change, was already tumbling, and still occupied the top of the entire hall. Chapter 520. On this day, exactly 1 month after the auspicious cloud appeared above Lei Jiuxiao's head, the astral wind, lightning and fire layer above 45,000 kilometers suddenly paused. The hole, which was originally broken open and had endless astral wind, thunder and fire pouring down from it, collapsed with a loud bang. The astral wind, thunder and fire seemed to have lost its target and wreaked havoc in all directions, causing the hole to become even larger. However, because of this, it also lost its target and turned into a strange cluster of clouds. It continuously surged and rolled at the boundary between the astral wind, thunder and fire layers. In the end, it gradually stopped under the natural recovery effect of the world, and the hole was also gradually repaired. At this moment, the astral wind, lightning and fire that extended from the astral wind, lightning and fire 90,000 miles above, and landed on the ancestral demon palace like a pillar that supported the heavens, suddenly collapsed and dissipated into the void. It was diluted by the yuan qi in the void, and finally disappeared without a trace. At this moment, the auspicious cloud that had lost the source of the astral wind, lightning and fire violently shrank. Among them, the incomparably intense changes that had been happening over the past month had developed to the extreme in an instant. Like the final radiance of a setting sun, everything that had been preserved and needed but had yet to happen had erupted completely. Endless light and shadows flickered within. The giant capsule divine wind, cloud transformation divine wind, samadhi divine wind, void reality divine wind, annihilation divine wind, and earth divine wind rapidly fused according to some kind of extremely mysterious law. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into an extremely pure and mysterious wind that contained the endless mysteries of the world and seemed to explain the truth of the universe. Wind. This pure wind that could not be described by any prefix began to spin in the void after it took shape. In the blink of an eye, it had already turned into a medium-sized whirlpool. After the whirlpool took shape, the chaotic fireball that was formed from the intertwining flames drawn from the astral wind, lightning and fire shook and turned into a stream of light that suddenly rushed into the whirlpool. The chaotic fireball was like a drop of water falling into a pot of boiling oil. It instantly triggered an extremely intense reaction. The vortex suddenly became extremely violent from its originally peaceful state. Every line and every trace of wind in the whirlpool seemed to have come to life, instantly changing their original forms. Like spiritual snakes and divine dragons, they circled above the whirlpool, forming incomparably mysterious and complicated trajectories. Following this trajectory, the fireball of primal chaos was shattered with a loud bang. It exploded into countless turbid sparks that were formed from countless types of heavenly flames, divine flames, and earthly flames. The strength of the explosion was enough to blast a minor chiliocosm into powder. But in this whirlpool, it did not stir up the slightest bit of turbulence. After the explosion, the entire whirlpool was still extremely stable and pure. It was still spinning violently. The endless chaos sparks were devoured bit by the countless lines that seemed to have come to life. In the blink of an eye, it had completely disappeared. For the past month, the endless flames that had fallen from the astral wind, lightning and fire layer were comparable to the wind that formed this whirlpool in terms of both quality and quantity. But now they were so easily destroyed by this whirlpool of wind. From this, it was enough to see how much stronger the wind had become after Lei Jiuxiao's tempering. With the replenishment of the chaotic fireball, the entire whirlpool seemed to have received some kind of nourishment and began to fill up. The lines and trajectories that seemed to have come to life returned to their previous state at this moment, and the entire whirlpool continued to shrink as it spun. After an unknown period of time, the whirlpool completely disappeared. In its place was a man sitting 3 feet away from Lei Jiuxiao. After the man took form, he casually waved his hand and all sorts of mysterious and unfathomable wind condensed out of thin air, forming all sorts of strange images in front of him. There were all sorts of living beings, mountains, rivers, and even stars in the universe. Everything seemed real, and one could even see all sorts of living beings living in them. The mountains and rivers flowed within them, and the stars in the universe circulated within them. There was nothing fake about all of this, and it was impossible to tell that they were formed by the wind. The man's appearance was exactly the same as Lei Jiuxiao and Son of Lightning. In fact, he even had an indescribably powerful emperor aura. Any living being that stood before him would feel a sense of submission that came from the bottom of their hearts. However, if the 3 of them weren't placed together, no living being would be able to connect the 3 of them together. no one would think that the three of them were the same person. Even the Son of Lightning was average. This was the clone of Son of Heaven Feng that Lei Jiuxiao had spent a month to cultivate. It was an existence of the same nature as the Son of Lightning's clone. It was also a clone that he had cultivated by combining a cultivation technique with the cultivation technique of Son of Heaven Feng's body. Its main power was to control all the wind in the primordial world within a certain range, just like how the Son of Lightning controlled all the lightning in a certain range. Although Son of Heaven Feng was also an emperor, he also had the essence of an emperor. He was also a supreme existence that could suppress all living beings in the world and intimidate all living beings. He was also a supreme emperor that emitted an endless aura of a king at all times and did not need any external objects to serve as a foil. However, he was completely different from the Son of Lightning. That distinct characteristic made it impossible for any living being to mistake him for the Son of Lightning, even if their appearances and bodies were exactly the same. Son of Heaven Feng waved his hand casually, and the things that he had condensed from the wind gradually dissipated. It was as if they were just some kind of smoke that had condensed into one place and displayed all sorts of scenes. Then, he took a step forward and crossed the void. He arrived 30 feet away from Lei Jiuxiao and looked him in the eye. Son of Heaven Feng was also Lei Jiuxiao's clone. All of Son of Heaven Feng's thoughts and all the changes in his body were completely under his control. It should not have been possible to have any thoughts that did not belong to Lei Jiuxiao when their eyes met. However, at this moment, Lei Jiuxiao felt that there was an inexplicable existence in Son of Heaven Feng's eyes. It was as if he was saying something, but also as if he was declaring something. With a thought from Lei Jiuxiao, the Son of Lightning's clone trembled in his sea of consciousness and walked out of his body. It also stood 30 feet away from Son of Heaven Feng's clone. One person and two clones stood in the middle. Their 6 eyes met, and a mysterious atmosphere gradually took shape. The inexplicable existence in the clone's eyes was like a bolt of lightning that instantly flashed through Lei Jiuxiao's mind. In an instant, it illuminated every corner of Lei Jiuxiao's mind. Chapter 521. Following his enlightenment, the lightning Son of Heaven's clone and the wind Son of Heaven's clone both trembled. Suddenly, endless lightning and wind emerged from the void and gathered towards the two clones. In the blink of an eye, they had completely enveloped the two clones. As the endless thunder and wind wrapped around the two Son of Heaven's clones, they began to undergo some kind of mysterious and strange change. The two clones of the Son of Heaven melted. In the blink of an eye, the lightning Son of Heaven's clone had already turned into a ball of extremely pure lightning. However, it was impossible to tell what kind of characteristics it possessed. As for the wind Son of Heaven's clone, it had turned into a ball of seemingly solid, flickering with an inexplicable mystery. It seemed to contain all colors, yet also seemed to have no colors at all. After the two of them were formed, the wind and lightning that were condensing towards the two clones seemed to have entered a black hole. In an instant, they were completely absorbed by the two clones and disappeared without a trace. After absorbing all the wind and lightning formed by the two clones suddenly fused together and formed a throne in front of Lei Jiuxiao. It was a throne with the faint sound of wind and thunder. It was incomparably dignified, as if it had merged with heaven and earth. It seemed as if it could erupt with endless power and destroy heaven and earth at any time. After the throne was formed, an incomparably mysterious and obscure existence spread out in all directions from the throne and directly seeped into the void, causing the void of the primordial world to undergo some subtle changes. Lightning flashed in Lei Jiuxiao's eyes. With a thought, his figure appeared on the throne out of thin air. As soon as he sat down, he felt that his entire sea of consciousness, his entire soul, his entire body, and his entire mind had undergone an earth-shattering change. This change was so great that it was even greater than all the progress, gains, and changes he had obtained in the minor chiliocosm for tens of millions of years. An indescribable sense of control appeared in his senses. At this moment, his senses seemed to have expanded to every inch of the void of the entire primordial world. The entire primordial world, the boundless primordial sea region, the endless starry sky, and the boundless land all appeared in his mind. In a trance, he seemed to have achieved the most noble status in the entire primordial world, becoming the supreme emperor of the entire primordial world, and controlling everything in the world. Even with Lei Jiuxiao's mental fortitude, he could not help but tremble when this feeling appeared. He felt an indescribable joy appear in his mind, directly filling the void of his sea of consciousness and wrapping around his soul. It made him feel warm all over, and waves of indescribable comfort filled his heart. As expected, this thought flashed through Lei Jiuxiao's mind. He focused his thoughts and sensed the various parts of the primordial world. Gradually, he discovered the limitations of this omniscient and omnipotent feeling, and he also knew how to perfect it. In fact, at this moment, although he could sense the entire primordial world, even the 18 levels of hell in the endless starry sky, he could sense all of them. However, what he could truly sense was only an area of hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Apart from this region, Lei Jiuxiao's perception of the other boundless regions was also limited to a rough sense of perception. If he had to describe it, it would be like the vision of a short-sighted person. He could see things clearly if they were close, but they were blurry if they were far away. He could not even see the outline clearly. Even though he could sense everything within a radius of several tens of thousands of miles, it was not perfect, and there were still many limitations. In his senses, the area within a few tens of thousands of kilometers was much more monotonous and simple than the real situation. It was like using a monitor with insufficient resolution to display a detailed image. Clearly, a lot of information was lost. Among them, the clearest and most complete was everything related to wind and lightning. For example, the various life forms and rocks related to the giant capsule divine wind within a few tens of thousands of kilometers were extremely clear. It even allowed him to sense many mysterious existences that he did not know or discover in the past. The structure of the astral wind, lightning, and fire layer above 90,000 kilometers was especially clear, allowing him to have an unprecedented deep understanding of the astral wind, lightning, and fire layer. For this to happen, it was clear that some conditions were still missing. In other words, the throne beneath him was still missing a portion of its structure. Lei Jiuxiao smiled and stood up. He took a step forward and left the throne. As he left, the feeling of omniscience and omnipotence instantly disappeared. The huge difference between before and after made him feel slightly annoyed even though he had a strong mind. Fortunately, he had an extremely deep grasp of his own mind. With a thought, he adjusted his mentality. With a casual point of his finger, the throne broke apart and turned back into two balls of wind and lightning. With another turn, they transformed into his son of lightning and son of wind. After the two clones appeared, thick clouds spewed out from the top of Lei Jiuxiao's head. They instantly condensed into a 10-acre large auspicious cloud above his head. After the son of lightning and son of wind's clones formed, they stepped onto the auspicious cloud. In the middle of the auspicious cloud, they raised their hands and grabbed at the air. They condensed into two different emperor thrones that emitted the aura of an emperor and shook the heavens and earth. Then, they sat on their respective thrones and slowly floated above the auspicious cloud. This auspicious cloud was formed from Lei Jiuxiao's magic power. It was connected to his spirit that had already transformed into a golden body. It allowed the two clones to be constantly refined by his spirit and magic power, allowing their power to constantly increase. It also made the connection between them and the spirit and magic power stronger and stronger. After doing all this, Lei Jiuxiao had a thought. The auspicious cloud charged straight into his body with the 2 clones. It directly turned into magic power and returned to the dantian in his lower abdomen. It condensed and shrank, turning into a mysterious and indescribably wonderful fruit that seemed to contain the endless mysteries of the universe. It was the Earth Immortal's fruit of Wei. As for the 2 clones, they seemed to have split into hundreds of thousands of parts and melded into every unit of magic power. They could no longer be found. Looks like I'll have to compete with senior brother in the future. I just hope that it won't affect the relationship between us, lest it displeases master. The endless lightning flashing in Lei Jiuxiao's eyes seemed to interweave into all kinds of unbelievable scenes. Although he had such thoughts in his mind, he was extremely firm and did not waver in the slightest. Chapter 522. After that thought flashed through Lei Jiuxiao's mind, he calmed himself down and casually took a step out of the ancestral demon palace. He appeared in the void above the palace. He raised his hand and slapped it down. An invisible wave appeared out of nowhere and swept across the ancestral demon palace. In an instant, a mysterious light flickered inside the ancestral demon palace. It formed an invisible barrier that completely covered the ancestral demon palace. Then, with a thought, he turned into a ray of light that was intertwined with wind and lightning. He shot towards the west. He was so fast that he crossed hundreds of thousands of kilometers in an instant. In the state where he could sense everything in the primordial world, he completely knew what he needed to do next. He also knew how to do it in the fastest, most accurate, and easiest way. At this moment, what he needed to do was to find the 9 connate fire beasts in the primordial world and create a cultivation method for the body of the Emperor of Zhurong according to the characteristics of the 9 connate fire beasts' bodies and innate abilities. Although it was quite troublesome for Lei Jiuxiao, who had already created the body of the Emperor of Wind, it was not difficult. All he needed was a little more time. The reason why Lei Jiuxiao wanted to create the cultivation method for the body of the Emperor of Zhurong was not because he was addicted to creating the cultivation method for the body of the Emperor of Zhurong. It was because only by creating the cultivation method for the body of the Emperor of Zhurong and cultivating the body of the Emperor of Zhurong could he complete the throne that the body of the Emperor of Wind and the body of the Emperor of Lightning combined. Only then would he be able to truly reach the state of omniscience and omnipotence after sitting on the throne. Only when he reached that step would he truly possess the qualifications to compete with his senior brother, as he had previously envisioned. This could be said to be related to his future path of cultivation. It was related to his life and death. He had no choice but to do it. The 9 connate fire beasts were no secret to Lei Jiuxiao. Back when he was researching basic demonic techniques with Daoist Tai Long and the others in the virtual world, he had already studied the physical characteristics of the 9 connate fire beasts countless times. The reason why he still needed to search for these 9 innate fire beasts was because he had never thought of creating a cultivation method for the body of the Emperor of Zhurong. He had never studied these innate fire beasts from the perspective of the body of the Emperor of Zhurong. Although Lei Jiuxiao's speed had reached an unimaginable level, it was still nothing compared to the vast primordial world. According to the omniscient and omnipotent state he had previously sensed, he would need at least a dozen days to reach the first type of innate fire beast. That was the only place outside of the Spirit Sea Prefecture that had no living beings around. Traveling had practically become second nature to Lei Jiuxiao, so it naturally didn't take up too much of his energy. Therefore, during the journey, he spent most of his energy and intelligence on studying the cultivation method of Zhurong Tianzi. He deduced the essence of the body of the Emperor a long time ago based on the cultivation method of Lightning Son of Heaven's clone, and he'd even used the cultivation method of Wind Son of Heaven's clone to prove that it was correct. At this moment, Lei Jiuxiao only needed to replace the 9 connate fire beasts with the cultivation method of Lightning Son of Heaven's clone. Even though it was troublesome, complicated, and required a great deal of energy, there were no bottlenecks or difficulties. He just had to follow the prescribed order. It was precisely because of this that he was able to start deducing on the way. No matter which group of the 9 connate fire beasts, it was a hopeless situation for living beings that hadn't attained the Tao. Even if it was independent immortals, it was troublesome to be annihilated if they weren't careful. However, to Lei Jiuxiao, who'd attained the true immortal realm and cultivated the grand Tao of the Tao, it wasn't a threat to him at all. To Lei Jiuxiao, the most troublesome part of collecting the 9 connate fire beasts was the distance between the various connate fire beasts, which could easily be calculated in trillions of miles. Therefore, even though it only took him a few breaths' time to capture the king of the connate fire beasts when he arrived at the place where the connate fire beasts gathered, 3 years had passed by the time Lei Jiuxiao gathered the 9 connate fire beasts. Lei Jiuxiao did not return to the ancestral demon palace with the 9 connate fire beasts. After all, the ancestral demon palace was only a temporary residence for him. The place Lei Jiuxiao had chosen was where the last type of connate fire beast resided. It was a place with a large cluster of volcanoes that spewed lava at all times. The volcanoes were blessed by nature as they were connected to the earth fire beneath the ground. The lava that spewed out was mixed with wisps of earth fire. To the connate fire beasts, it was a sacred place for them to live. Roaming in it would allow them to grow better. Lei Jiuxiao's cultivation had reached the true immortal realm. This was an earth-shattering realm. It was easy for him to move mountains, drain oceans, and change the world. As the volcanoes were modified, the lava calmed and the earth fire condensed. A group of flaming palaces was formed in the void to serve as his residence. 3 years was long enough for Lei Jiuxiao to create the cultivation methods for the 9 connate fire beasts. Therefore, after the flaming palaces were formed, Lei Jiuxiao did not hesitate at all and directly inserted the 9 cultivation methods into the 9 connate fire beasts' seas of consciousness. He allowed the 9 connate fire beasts to cultivate on their own in order to find any flaws. He had already done this process 5 or 6 times, so there was naturally no difficulty to speak of. There was nothing much to say. With the help of the earth fire, the true fire of the sun, and the boundless vitality, the 9 connate fire beasts spent less than half a year to cultivate their respective bodies. They were sent back by Lei Jiuxiao using the same method he used on the connate wind beasts. Moreover, when they were sent away, they shed tears of gratitude and wished that they could die for Lei Jiuxiao. The cultivation method for the body of the Emperor of Zhurong is finally complete. Lei Jiuxiao sat on the throne formed by Emperor Feng and Emperor Lei's clones. Endless complicated words, patterns, runes, and talismans flashed through his eyes. Such thoughts flashed through his mind. The cultivation method for the body of the Emperor of Zhurong was not difficult, but it was the most complicated and troublesome of the 3 body of the Emperor of Zhurong. The difficulty of cultivating it was also the highest among the 3 body of the Emperor of Zhurong. However, as long as he succeeded in cultivating it and combined the body of Emperor Feng and body of the Emperor of Lightning, he would be able to become the Supreme Emperor of Heaven. Chapter 523. For Lei Jiuxiao, he had already completed the most difficult part of creating the cultivation method for the Zhurong Emperor's body. However, after 9 days and 9 nights, the fire palace suddenly collapsed. All the flames suddenly shrank, as if there was a black hole madly absorbing all the flames. It also seemed like the void had completely collapsed, and everything in the primordial world was about to leak out. After a long while, when this phenomenon stopped, an indescribably powerful emperor's aura erupted from the center of the collapsed volcano. It blotted out the heavens and the earth, and it practically enveloped the entire group of volcanoes, causing the innate fire beasts living within to stop all their activities. They could only lie on the ground and tremble. Even the innate fire beast king that had become a demon beast was no exception. The strange phenomenon lasted for a few minutes before it slowly faded away. At that moment, there were only two figures left at the original location of the Flame Palace. These two figures had exactly the same appearance, but their auras were like the heavens and the earth, causing no living being to be able to treat them as the same existence. This was Lei Jiuxiao and the Zhurong Emperor's clone he had just cultivated. As the Zhurong Emperor's clone sensed something, the Lightning Emperor's clone and the Wind Emperor's clone, which had already fused with his magic power units, naturally transmitted a mysterious feeling to his mind. The two mysterious existences intertwined with the Zhurong Emperor's clone, causing Lei Jiuxiao to suddenly feel a sense of completion from the depths of his heart. In an instant, Lei Jiuxiao clearly knew that his plan had completely succeeded. The appearance of the Zhurong Emperor's clone was indeed the last piece of the puzzle to complete the position of the Son of Heaven. Understanding this, Lei Jiuxiao could not help but smile in anticipation. With a casual point of his finger, the Lightning Emperor's clone and the Wind Emperor's clone reformed and walked out of his dantian. They stood on three sides with the Zhurong Emperor's clone, surrounding Lei Jiuxiao. The moment the three clones showed up together, three indescribably powerful auras of emperors rose into the sky. As they clashed against each other, the power of each of these three clones was rising at an unimaginable rate. The area covered by these three clones was even 100 times larger than when it was only Zhu Rong's clone. The space within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers was completely enveloped by this indescribable sovereign aura. Even the strong winds, lightning, and fire layers above 90,000 kilometers were vibrating in this aura, forming circles upon circles of ripples. Finally, the balance hidden in the space was broken, and the true form was revealed, allowing all living beings in the world to clearly see its existence. The circles of ripples seemed to have some kind of pulse occurring within the astral wind, lightning, and fire layer, announcing it to the entire great desolate world. The momentum was incomparably huge. However, the primordial world was vast and boundless after all. Although the phenomenon that occurred in this place affected a radius of tens of millions of kilometers, it was still incomparably small compared to the entire primordial world. Thus, it did not attract the attention of the other great experts. As a result, no great expert had sent their consciousness here like Taoist Tai Long had. Lei Jiuxiao quietly sensed the profound changes caused by the three clones appearing at the same time. The feeling of perfection in his heart became more and more obvious. With a single thought, endless wind, lightning, and fire were born in the air. They gathered towards the three clones at an unimaginable speed, enveloping them in the blink of an eye. Then, the change that happened last time happened again. However, this time, it was even faster than last time, and the momentum was even greater. The space rippled gently, wave after wave of ripples spreading from the three clones. All the innate energy, chaotic energy, the essence of the sun, the true fire of the sun, the essence of the moon, the essence of the stars, the astral energy, and so on and so forth in the air were separated in an instant. Beside Lei Jiuxiao, or rather, around the three clones, there was no other energy left other than the wind, lightning, and fire. In the primordial world that was filled with endless energy, an energy vacuum that spanned tens of thousands of kilometers suddenly appeared. Even in the region 5,000 kilometers away from Lei Jiuxiao, the various energies seemed to have been pressured by some sort of indescribable aura. They became sluggish and sluggish, but they were also affected by some sort of profound change. Their mobility instantly decreased by over 10,000 times. The three clones rapidly melted within the wind, lightning, and fire. In the blink of an eye, they had melted into an extremely pure ball of indescribable wind, a ball of indescribable lightning, and a ball of fire that was similar to the other two. The moment the three balls of wind, lightning, and fire took form, a boundless suction force was generated. The wind, lightning, and fire around them were instantly sucked into the center, disappearing without a trace. In that instant, the three balls of wind, lightning, and fire shot towards Lei Jiuxiao, who was at the center. They collided below Lei Jiuxiao in the blink of an eye, producing a mysterious brilliance that spread out in all directions. The brilliance was like an invisible hand that had swept past, wiping away the various phenomena that had appeared in the space, allowing the surroundings to gradually return to normal. The various energies that had been expelled reappeared in a radius of 10,000 kilometers around Lei Jiuxiao. The energy outside also recovered its vitality, and the stagnation from before completely disappeared after the brilliance swept past. When the brilliance disappeared, everything returned to normal. A simple and unadorned throne appeared beneath Lei Jiuxiao. It gave off an extremely noble aura, as if the entire primordial world had to submit to it. Compared to the thrones formed by the Wind Emperor's clone and the Lightning Emperor's clone, this throne was extremely complete and stable. It was as if all the mysteries of the world were contained within it. It was so stable that even if the entire world collapsed, the universe was destroyed, and the world returned to dust, it would not be damaged in the slightest. Lei Jiuxiao sat on the throne. His eyes were empty, and the lightning that constantly flickered within them had already completely frozen. However, his senses instantly covered the entire primordial world under the guidance of the throne. In that instant, the outline of the entire primordial world appeared in his mind. The layer of astral wind, lightning, and fire above 90,000 kilometers, the endless starry sky that stretched for 100,000 kilometers, the sea of blood below 90,000 kilometers, the 18 layers of hell that stretched for 100,000 kilometers, the boundless primordial world, and the boundless sea that was even vaster than the primordial world, all of this constantly flickered in Lei Jiuxiao's mind. In just an instant, Lei Jiuxiao's understanding of the primordial world deepened by thousands of times. In fact, he even felt as if he was truly alive at this moment. Chapter 524. The structure formed by the combination of wind, lightning, and fire was the most stable structure in the entire primordial world. This point could be deduced from the structure of the primordial world without analyzing the essence of its energy. The astral wind, lightning, and fire layer above 90,000 kilometers was the combination of wind, lightning, and fire, the three types of energy. This combination could even separate the primordial world from the boundless starry sky. The boundless starry sky that contained the boundless expanse of space, the billions of stars, and even the borders of the boundless chaos were slightly blurry. The strength of the energy contained within it was obvious. But even so, the boundless starry sky was clearly separated from the world below by the layer of wind, lightning, and fire. Even the boundary did not blur at all. From this, it could be seen how stable and unbreakable the structure formed by the combination of wind, lightning, and fire was. However, if one were to analyze the essence of the energy, the result would not change at all. Wind and lightning generated each other, lightning and fire supported each other, and wind and fire complemented each other. The combination of the three formed an extremely perfect structure. Its stability was easy to imagine. It was because of this consideration and the inexplicable intuition that Lei Jiuxiao came up with the idea of combining Emperor Feng's clone, Emperor Lightning's clone, and Emperor Zhurong's clone to form a throne. Lei Jiuxiao sat on the throne, and his mind was raised infinitely. The feeling of omniscience and omnipotence made him extremely intoxicated. Suddenly, he seemed to understand the world in his master's eyes. The tears that flowed out of his eyes had already evaporated. At this moment, his expression had calmed down again. Although he could completely sense the entire primordial world from the throne, it was only a rough sense. The ability to truly cover the entire primordial world with his mind and bring everything into his senses was something that even Luo Fan, who had the grand unity true number, did not possess. It was impossible for Lei Jiuxiao, who was in the perfected immortal realm, to do it with a throne. Therefore, although this rough sense could allow Lei Jiuxiao to roughly sense the entire untainted land, it was not enough if he wanted to be specific to a specific small area, such as a certain mountain, a certain pool, a certain cave, and other small targets. He could truly be omniscient and omnipotent, truly controlling everything within a radius of 10 million kilometers. This was already an extremely shocking power. Even Luo Fan might not be able to truly achieve this. Of course, the area that Luo Fan could truly control was tens of thousands of times more powerful than Lei Jiuxiao's power in this area of 5 million kilometers. This was needless to say. After a while, Lei Jiuxiao gained a complete understanding of the throne's power. He knew what it could and couldn't do. After understanding this, he focused his consciousness on the area within a radius of 10 million miles around him. As he focused his mind, countless strands of spiritual awareness gradually became clear in his perception. This area was originally the residence of a type of natural flame beasts, and there was a huge amount of natural flame beasts living here. At this moment, all of them were prostrating on the ground while trembling with fear, and they were fearfully enduring the boundless might emanated by the throne and didn't dare move in the slightest. Under the power of the throne, Lei Jiuxiao could easily sense the emotions of every living being. He could sense their reverence, fear, and panic. It was even to the extent that he had the feeling that he could easily control the life and death of all these living beings. It was like he only had to issue a single thought, and he didn't need any strength, divine ability, or technique to make all these living beings live or die. No matter how strong they would absolutely be unable to resist him at all. After carefully comprehending this mysterious feeling for a while, Lei Jiuxiao slowly broke free from this state. A faint smile appeared on his face. He stood up and left the throne. Although he had already left, the feelings left in his mind allowed him to understand that he could enter the state of omniscience and omnipotence at any time. He could roughly sense the entire primordial world, as well as the life and death of all living beings within a radius of 10 million miles. With a thought, a wave of magic power rushed out from the top of his head, forming a cloud above his head. The moment the cloud formed, the throne trembled and split into three again. They formed Son of Lightning's clone, Son of Wind's clone, and Son of Zhurong's clone that had just formed. Even at this moment, Lei Jiuxiao still felt that he could enter the state of omniscience and omnipotence at any time. It did not disappear because of the throne's disintegration, and it did not even weaken because of its disintegration. In the blink of an eye, Lei Jiuxiao knew that this throne was indeed at the great perfection realm. At the same time, it could also be said that he, who had condensed this throne, had truly achieved the supreme status that this throne represented. It was the supreme position of the Son of Heaven. The moment the name of the supreme position of the Son of Heaven appeared in Lei Jiuxiao's mind, an indescribable pressure gradually spread out from Lei Jiuxiao's body. This pressure was still very faint, and it could even be overlooked if one wasn't careful. However, its essence was supreme. It was even more noble than the pressure that Son of Lightning, Son of Wind, and Son of Zhurong gave off. If it unleashed its power, it would be even more terrifying than the three of them. After the three clones reappeared, they took a step forward and arrived on the cloud above Lei Jiuxiao's head. With a wave of their hands, they each manifested a throne of the Son of Heaven. They sat on the throne as if they were sitting in the supreme hall of the Son of Heaven. With another thought from Lei Jiuxiao, the cloud wrapped around the three clones and sank back into his body. It melted into his meridians and flowed into his dantian, condensing into a mysterious and indescribable earthly immortal fruit of Wei. During this process, the three clones had already merged into every unit of Dharma power. They split their power into three directions in the extremely mysterious three-dimensional talisman, causing the three-dimensional talisman to become more and more stable. It was as if the three pillars of the primordial world were supporting the primordial world. As the three clones entered his body, the supreme might emanating from Lei Jiuxiao's body became even more obvious and profound. Suddenly, an indescribable feeling emerged from the depths of his heart. This feeling came from an endless distance. Even numbers could not describe it. There was an indescribable calling from that huge distance, as if there was something extremely important waiting for him to retrieve it. Lei Jiuxiao calculated for a moment, then a faint wry smile appeared on his face. At the same time, there was indescribable determination in his eyes. Chapter 525. In the deepest part of the starry sky, a star emitting the essence of the sun, and the essence of the sun was fixed in the void, as if it was suppressing the universe. There were countless stars in the starry sky. In the chaos world, they seemed to be densely packed together, piled up in a mysterious and complicated way. It seemed that the stars in the starry sky were densely packed. But in fact, the vastness of the starry sky was beyond the limit of any number. The stars that looked densely packed in the chaos world were as sparse as a handful of sand in a boundless ocean when they were distributed across the entire starry sky. Every star was so lonely. Within billions of miles of the starry sky, there were no other similar existences. At this moment, the star in this location was naturally the sun, which hung high in the sky and shone on the entire chaos world, providing endless light and heat to the world. It was also the giant star transformed from Pan Gu's left eye. Above the sun was an endless life force. The essence of the sun and the essence of the sun condensed into countless kinds of creatures, living on the sun, just like all kinds of creatures living in the chaos world. There were countless conflicts and killings, but also all kinds of peace and serenity. Somewhere above the sun, on a towering mountain peak condensed from the essence of the sun and the essence of the sun, a magnificent palace stood on the peak. The palace was tens of thousands of meters tall, giving off a great, majestic aura and an indescribable power of deterrence. Within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles, no creatures condensed from the essence of the sun and the essence of the sun dared to approach the mountain. All of a sudden, the palace shook slightly. Next, a long beam of light darted out of the gate of the palace and showed up in the void. The figure was a calm-looking young man. Judging by his appearance, he was Luo Fan's son, Luo Fu. Luo Fu appeared in the void, frowned, and looked in a certain direction in the starry sky. His eyes sparkled with a faint golden light. Countless lights and shadows flashed across the golden light, and endless information was transmitted into his mind through the golden light. Suddenly, he understood many facts that he hadn't paid attention to before. What happened just now? It seems that something bad happened to me. Luo Fu carefully sensed the information transmitted into his mind through the golden light. This thought flashed across his mind. The golden light in his eyes was a divine power that he had learned from Luo Fan, studied with Guang Pu, and combined with the sun. This divine power and the Pangu chaotic heavenly pupils? The first layer of the left chapter was similar to the great sun golden eyes. Although it wasn't as profound as the great sun golden eyes, it could still see through the real and the fake. Ever since he had been sent away by Luo Fan from the Infinite Void Palace, Luo Fu had been cultivating in the Bright Realm for the next few thousand years. Today, as he was adjusting his breathing with his eyes closed, he suddenly felt that something important had happened. Only then did he stop to adjust his breathing and leave the Bright Realm. After the Great Calamity, the primordial world had undergone such a huge change, and the Bright Realm was no exception. Because the Supreme Great Tao had naturally changed, endless power had entered the Bright Realm, constantly opening and expanding it. In the end, the Bright Realm had expanded more than 100,000 times compared to when it had first been created. And this expansion and perfection had not ended. It was still continuing. At this moment, the entire Bright Realm had become a complete minor kiliacosm. In the boundless world, all the laws were close to perfection. The entire Bright Realm even gave birth to all sorts of mysterious life. Endless innate origin chi was constantly being born in the Bright Realm. Even the mysterious origin chi that had originally been filled with became hundreds or thousands of times denser. Such a bright realm was even more mysterious and complete than the 296 billion grotto heavens that had appeared out of thin air in the primordial world. Moreover, the bright realm had been created based on the Great Sun and the Great Yin. Luo Fu and Guang Pu had a mysterious connection with the Great Sun and the Great Yin respectively. To a certain extent, they had even become the masters of the sun and the moon. Under these conditions, Luo Fu and Guang Pu naturally would not choose the other grotto heavens above the primordial world like Lei Jiuxiao and the others. Thus, in the past thousands of years, Luo Fu and Guang Pu had been quietly comprehending the mysteries of the bright realm. They used the evolution of the bright realm to consolidate what they had gained in the void Wuji Palace. Luo Fu floated in the void and frowned. He wanted to return to the bright realm to continue comprehending the changes there. However, he could not let it go. He felt that doing so would cause extremely serious consequences. After a long while, he sighed. It's not good to meditate in this state. Forget it, I've left the primordial world for thousands of years. I need to go down and take a walk again. With a thought, he pointed casually, and a ray of spiritual light rushed out of his hand. It rushed into the door of the hall below and arrived in an almost perfect minor kiliacosm. It turned into a stream of light and passed through an almost infinite distance. It arrived at a straw hut and suddenly landed, rushing into it. Inside the straw hut, a beautiful woman sat cross-legged with her eyes closed. When the spiritual light arrived, she seemed to feel it. Her eyelids trembled slightly and she slowly opened her eyes. 2 rays of clear light flashed, and the entire straw hut seemed to become the most luxurious place in the world because of this gaze. This woman was naturally Guang Pu, Luo Fan's third disciple and also Luo Fu's wife. As Guang Pu opened her eyes, the spiritual light that Luo Fu emitted suddenly stopped. Seeing the spiritual light, Guang Pu stretched out her white, jade-like palm and gently waved. The spiritual light entered her palm. In an instant, endless light and shadows quickly flowed between her eyes. After a while, Guang Pu frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, she raised her hand and grabbed outwards. A ray of Dharma power suddenly broke through the infinite space and came to another place in the bright realm. It was hundreds of millions of miles away from the straw hut, and it wrapped around a 13-year-old girl. As the girl screamed, it broke through the space and rushed out of the bright realm. It came to the extremely hot sun that could destroy any living creature that had not reached the Tao. It appeared in front of Luo Fu. "Haha! Mom, you're finally willing to let me leave the bright realm. Guo loves you the most." The girl's scream turned into surprise and she giggled. This girl was Luo Guo, the daughter of Luo Fu and Guang Pu. "It's time for Guo to see the primordial wastelands. Since you're going to the land, why don't you take Guo with you?" As the arcane power around Guo trembled slightly, Guang Pu's voice traveled out. Seeing Guo and hearing her voice, Luo Fu smiled bitterly and said, "I'm doing something, Dad, you don't want me anymore." Hearing Luo Fu's words, Guo opened her eyes wide and stared at Luo Fu. Her eyes were full of disbelief and indescribable grievance. Tears welled up in her eyes and seemed to flow down at any time. Being stared at by this pair of eyes, what else could Luo Fu do?